Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumon. But the Mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of Severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My outie's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Innie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marquez.
Wait!
My name is Miss Wong. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
And welcome welcome all to another edition of the Severance Hour. And tonight we have a very fun show in store for everyone. Episode 3 has hit the books. It was a phenomenal episode. And I must say, Severance is advancing incredibly fast. Like, the plot is really moving this season, and I am absolutely loving that. Was not expecting Mark's reintegration to happen this early in the season. I was expecting him to integrate at some point this season, but I was not expecting reintegration as early as episode 3. But I am all for it. I am loving the pacing up until this point. They are absolutely just completely killing it right now. Severance, in my opinion, is definitely the best show that is currently on TV, and I am loving every minute of it. And from what I hear, episode 4 is going to be apparently the craziest episode of Severance they've ever filmed. Actor Adam Scott, who plays Mark S., says it was the most intense episode he's ever filmed in the history of Severance. So it looks like episode 4 is going to be a very big one. Looks like some big answers are going to get revealed. Apparently, a long-awaited fan theory will be getting definitively answered once and for all. So episode 4, guys, looks like it is going to be the big one of the season. So I am loving it. I am loving the pacing so far. And I have heard a lot of people comparing Severance to From recently in terms of having a similar mystery box aspect to it, which they totally do. But I've also heard people saying that they're kind of enjoying the answers they're getting on Severance a lot better than From, just because they're coming at a much more rapid rate. And I do understand that. I do kind of feel similar in a sense myself. It does feel like we're getting answers on Severance a lot sooner than we did on From. But I'm loving it. I love both shows. I mean, they're probably my 2 favorite shows that are currently on right now. But I am loving what Severance is doing so far. It is absolutely killing it in season 2. And man, we're only 3 episodes in. We are only 3 episodes in, and it has already been absolutely insane. Absolute insanity. But tonight we are going to dive into all things episode 3, and of course take a little preview look at episode 4 as well, because it looks like episode 4 is indeed going to be the episode. We saw a little preview of it in the season 2 trailer. The episode where our Innies actually go into the outside world and go on their little Arctic adventure in their awesome little Russian cosmonaut hats, which I love. Love the outfits. Love the way our Innies look here. This is definitely this has been my favorite image attached to season 2 up until this point in terms of all the promotional material that came out. I have been more excited probably for this episode than any other, just for the, for everything that comes with it. I mean, not only do they look incredibly badass, but this is interesting. This is going to be the first time our Innies have ever seen the outside world during the daylight. Now, of course, we did see a few of them get outside at the end of season 1, but it was pitch dark. It was pitch black. This is the first time they're ever going to see what the world really looks like during the day. And of course, they're going to see snow for the first time as well. Our Innies are in for it. Our Innies are about to get a taste of the real world in episode 4. And I think that is going to be absolutely insane to see. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how they're going to react to really seeing the outside world. Again, at the end of season 1, when they had the macro dad uprising, yes, a few of them did get to see the outside world, but they were on mission. They had a task they needed to complete. It's not like they had time to stop and sightsee. But in episode 4, they are going to be able to do exactly that. They are going to see the outside world for the first time, and it should be interesting to see how they react. It should be very interesting to see how they react. But before we dive into all the festivities, let me see who is in the awesome chat this evening. Let me scroll up here. We got Pam Jam in the house. What is up, Pam Jam? The suspense is killing me. Yes, well, let the suspense kill you no longer. We are getting closer and closer now. We're actually less than 24 hours away from episode 4 now. Less than 24 hours. And I am ready. I am ready. We got Chris B in the house. What is up, Chris B? Praise Kier. Indeed. Praise Kier. Praise Kier for the lovely, lovely show that he has bestowed upon us. Indeed. Indeed. We got Steed in the house. What is up, Steed? I got so used to slow-moving plots in From. Severance has taken me by surprise with this pace. Absolutely, Steed. I 100% agree with you. And like I said earlier, like I was just saying a minute ago, this is actually the sentiment I've been seeing a ton in my comment section lately. A lot of people saying this exact same thing, because we did get a lot of crossover from to Severance. A lot of people who were here watching From with us did make the journey and are watching Severance with us now. And yes, I have been hearing this from so many people. I've been seeing so many comments similar to what you're saying now, that they're loving Severance, but they're loving the pacing a little bit more than From, because it is advancing a little bit more rapidly. So I totally agree with you there. It does feel like we are going to get some profound answers on Severance a lot sooner than we did on From. So yes, I've been seeing this sentiment a lot lately in the comment section, and that's awesome. I'm glad people are enjoying it. Loving the pacing. Yeah, absolutely. Same. Absolutely loving the pacing. It's been paced out well. It has been paced out well. They're not going too fast. They're not going too slow. They're giving us a perfect amount. And it seems like every time they give us something new, yes, we get a little bit of an answer, but it also sets up something else for later on. So I feel like they're playing the mystery aspect on Severance perfectly up until this point. Perfect mystery box, in my opinion. Absolutely. We got Fenrir in the house. What is up, Fenrir? Hello, Sevies. Yes, what is up to the Sevies? What is up indeed? Welcome, Fenrir. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got the one and only PM in the house. Welcome, welcome, PM. So good to see you as always. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Sevies. Sevies in the building. Kier is king. Yes, Kier is king. I mean, Kier, what can you say? Got to praise Kier. Got to praise Kier. We got the Rogue Prince in the house. What is up, Rogue Prince? Good to see you, my friend. Always good to see Rogue Prince. Rogue Prince has been riding with us since House of the Dragon Season 1. I see you, my friend, and very much appreciate you. Hell, you've been here since I had like 7,000 subs, since very early on. So awesome to still see you here, diving into all of these shows with us. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Love it. Let's see what else we got. Let's see who else we got. Scrolling down, I see Theo. What is up, Theo? Always good to see you as well. Welcome, welcome, Theo. Show might need to take a year off between seasons to get stuff right. Ooh, interesting. Severance? Ooh, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Severance is nailing it myself, personally. I feel like they're doing really well. We have recently heard that apparently they're planning to do around 4 seasons in total. So by the time season 2 ends, we should be obviously around, halfway through the story, if they are planning on sticking to that 4-season timeline, I guess. It should be interesting to see. I mean, if the pace is advancing this rapidly, this fast, it should be interesting to see where season 2 ends. Like, how much are they going to cover? How much ground will be sown in this second season? And what are they going to leave open for seasons 3 and 4 if they are planning on sticking to that 4-season plan that I've recently heard they are planning on doing? Yeah, it should be interesting. It should be interesting to see how far they take season 2 and where they're going to end it. I am looking forward to that. 90% of from answers came during the season finale. They really did. They really did. And they were great answers. Don't get me wrong. Like, I really enjoyed all the big revelations we got in the from finale. Like, it's like, finally. But yes, they, some of those answers maybe could have been spread out a little better. It did kind of feel like they were just hitting us over the head with exposition in that final episode. I mean, one of the #1 rules of storytelling, and nobody knows this better than Zaid Comics, my pal, awesome comic book writer and creator. Nobody knows this better than him. When it comes to storytelling, you want to show the audience, not tell them. You always want to show them the story. You don't want to just tell them. And that was one small problem I had with the end of From season 3. We got a lot of answers through straight up exposition, just long-winded exposition without them actually really showing us what happened. Like, give us a flashback to the original timeline. Give us a flashback to when the monsters were sacrificing their children, instead of just having it all relayed to us through Fatima, I guess. So that was one of my small problems with the end of From season 3. Again, it was great to get answers finally, but the #1 rule of storytelling, you want to show the audience, not tell them. So that was a little disappointing that they didn't show us at the end of season 3. They kind of just told us. Again, still grateful to get answers, but yeah, 90% of them did come in one episode way at the end. So there is that. I agree with you, my friend. I agree with you, my friend. We got Ultra Guido. We got Ultra Guido in the house. What is up, Ultra? Good to see you. Welcome, 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 welcome. We got Catherine in the house. Welcome, Catherine. Good to see you. Welcome indeed. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Got Jen in the building. Craziness so far. Loving the show and sleuthing to figure out Lumon mysteries. It really has been fun. A show like this, it does kind of lean itself well to having these kind of discussions, I feel. I mean, I feel like I can have fun talking about almost any show out there, but shows like this that do have that mystery aspect, that do have that kind of, throwing on that tinfoil hat, diving into that rabbit hole a little bit, trying to figure out what's really going on beneath the surface. What is this company really up to? What is Lumon really doing? What is the ultimate end game kind of thing? Those kinds of shows are always just a little bit more fun, or sometimes a lot more fun to discuss. So yeah, 100%. A show like Severance is very much geared towards having these kind of conversations, which I absolutely enjoy. Love doing these Severance streams. We got Wayne in the house. What is up, Wayne? Salute. Does anyone know Kier him? Yeah, what is the Kier him? I wonder if that's on the wiki. I have not checked it. There's a surprisingly good amount of information there on the Severance wiki that you cannot get just from watching the episodes, which I actually reference often for my videos because I want to kind of be as thorough as possible. Like in my recent endgame theory video, I had to dive a little bit deeper into the wiki to refresh about the Beard Creek Bandit, which is something you don't really learn of in the show unless you happen to catch the small little snippet of a newspaper kind of glancing by. But the wiki really helps for diving a little bit deeper into some of the more obscure things in Severance, for sure. For sure. I think next season of From is going to be one big flashback. You never know. It might be. I mean, you never know. I mean, I hope it's not going to be just one big flashback. I think that would be a little bit of a waste of an entire season if they don't have any forward progression. But I would totally love to see some flashbacks. Like, give us some flashbacks to the original timeline, how the monsters first sacrificed their children, how they became monsters in the first place. Show us. Don't just tell us, I guess. So I'm definitely prepared for some flashbacks, but a whole season of flashbacks might be a little much. Might be a little much. We got Michael in the house. What is up, Michael? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Great radio voice. Oh, well, thank you for that, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate that. We got Midgie Marley in the house. What is up, Midgie Marley? First time on Alive. Hi, all. Well, that is so awesome. You are most welcome here. Everybody, of course, is most welcome here, whether it's your first live stream or your 100th. We all just want to hear your opinions. What are you guys thinking about the show? What has been some of your favorite moments of Severance Season 2? What have been some of your least favorite moments? That is what we love discussing here on this channel. We want to hear from each and every one of you. Let us know what you guys think. We want to know. We want to know. We got Pam Jam. I agree, Jeremy. A flashback on the monster creation and the children's story would be awesome. Also, Tabitha and Jade's past, like 1 or 2 episodes would be great. I'm hoping we get something like that. Yeah. Especially the Tabitha and Jade thing, as you mentioned, because that was like probably the biggest revelation. Between that and like actually learning the monster's origin, those were probably the 2 biggest reveals we've ever gotten on the show. And it just sucks that we got them through exposition and we didn't get them through actually seeing them in a flashback. So I do hope we get that in season 4. And I'm sure we'll see it in some way. I'm sure we'll see it in some way. I think that the folks in town are also chipped and that the townspeople are also severed. Ooh, interesting. In terms of Beard Creek Manor, where Mark and where Miss Selvig used to live, totally possible. Absolutely, totally possible. I mean, this whole world of Severance, the whole world that it is set in, I mean, that whole town is literally named after Kier. It's the town of Kier, and the apartment complex, the housing complex that they all live in is Beard Creek Manor, which of course is named after Beard Egan, the 4th CEO in Lumon history, which I referenced heavy in my latest video. But yeah, it's, you know, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It seems like that entire housing complex is all kind of almost solely designated just for Lumon employees. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if there were some chip people out there in the real world. I mean, this whole world of Severance just seems so tailor-made, so crafted to serve Lumon, to serve Kier at the end of the day, whether it's inside the actual building or whether it's inside the actual residence. Like the whole world, everything about it just seems tailor-made to be a function of Kier, a function of the company in a sense. Yeah, as above, so below. Indeed, indeed. I could totally see that. Totally see that, indeed. Kier Him is mocking real-world things that happened in 1920s corporations like IBM songs. Okay, hey, if that is the Kier Him, that is the Kier Him. I am fine with that. Hell yes. We got Soul Journey. Welcome, welcome, Soul Journey. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got With Alice in the building as well. Welcome, With Alice. Good to see you as well. I think I'm liking the Innie visitations and how Miss Wong is listening in. That was a little strange. That was a little strange. Like the second she says, "Oh, Seth told me this would be weird," and Innie Dillon, he has no idea who Seth is. He doesn't know Milchick's first name. He's like, "Who's Seth?" And you know, please refrain from sharing any information that's not relevant. It's like, fuck. It's like, man, she's watching every fucking minute. She's big brothering that thing. I suppose that means conjugal is out of the question. You got fucking Miss Wong out there just grilling you, just watching you 24/7. What kind of visit is that? What kind of visit is that? And yeah, what is up with the creepy little girl? that's another question in and of itself. I mean, what is up with her? Indeed, there's been a lot of talk in terms of, is she severed? Is she not severed? Now, I know the show is presenting her as if she is an unsevered manager. They're saying she's not severed, but I don't know. I don't know if I buy it. I'm not sure if I 100% believe them. But she's just incredibly strange. How did someone like that, someone that young, get a a high position at a place like Lumon, especially on the severed floor of Lumon, which seems to house their most sensitive stuff? I don't know. I don't know. I think Miss Wong is an enigma that needs to be unraveled a little bit more. There's just so much we don't know about her. The only thing we really get is, and I remember when PM pointed this out to me, which I totally forgot. The only little backstory for her that we get is that she said she used to be a crossing guard. She was a crossing guard before she was here at Lumon. How the heck does a kid go from a crossing guard to a high-paying managerial position in a giant corporation like Lumon on their most important and classified floor? I don't know. Something's up with Miss Wong. Something is up with Miss Wong. I gotta keep my eye on her. Miss Wong reminds me of Tilly in terms of just how sus she is. She's incredibly sus. Something is up with this poor girl. I don't know what it is, but something is up. We got Susie in the house. What is up, Susie? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry I'm late, Hockey. That is totally fine. I know what it means to have to get your sports fix in. I, of course, am a Boston Celtics fan. I have been a lifelong Boston Celtics fan. That's actually where the 33 in my name comes from on YouTube, a old homage to the king himself, Larry Bird. So I know what it means to, you got to get your sports fix in every once in a while. I am nothing if I don't catch at least 2 Celtics games a week. Got to. Oh, we're losing anyway. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. That is not fun. That is not fun. But hey, you're loyal to your team. That is good. If she's not chipped, maybe a little bit of nepotism is going on. Now, that's definitely a possibility. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like, who is she? Is she the daughter of somebody? Is she the niece of somebody? I remember when she first popped up, there were some interesting theories of people saying that she was like a younger version of Gemma, which I don't know if that's the case personally. I just don't see how that could play out. But yeah, I mean, nepotism could totally have played a role for her getting that position. Yeah, like, is she the daughter of somebody, the nephew, or I mean, the niece or something? Definitely a possibility. Yeah, absolutely. Soul Journey, another mystery. What do you think? Soul Journey, another mystery. I don't know what's going on. I mean, when it comes to Severance, every time I feel like I get a handle on where I think it's going, an episode will come around and kind of make me just completely reevaluate where I think the show is going. And I like that. I genuinely love shows like this that challenge me, that really make me think. I don't want it to be easy. I don't want the answers to come easy. Like, I do want there to be a little bit of detective work going in, a little bit of that kind of, throwing on the tinfoil hat and trying to suss out what is really going on here. So that is one thing I really like about Severance. It's really hard to nail down exactly where this thing is going because it's an original story. It's not based on a book or a reboot or any kind of pre-existing source material. It is a new original story. And that I really love. Now, it may share a lot in common with many other stories out there. And I just recently did a video on all of the shocking similarities between Severance and the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, actually. Now, a lot of people think Frankenstein, they think of the monster, the mindless monster walking around, but the true story, like the real story of Frankenstein, of Victor Frankenstein and his monster, it's incredibly dark and it's incredibly tragic. And it does share a ton in common with Severance, in particular with Kier and Victor Frankenstein in particular. Like, those two are almost mirror images of themselves in terms of the characters that they are and who they are and what they stand for and what they try to achieve. So yeah, I love how Severance is an original story, but yeah, they definitely seem to be taking some influence from some really, really cool stuff like Victor Frankenstein. I love that. Miss Wong is scary, very intense. She's a bit scary. I mean, for a child, she is a bit intimidating. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the lack of dialogue or kind of like the blank stare she gives you. I swear, like she has like this weird blank stare that turns into like a creepy smile out of nowhere, and it is a little bit unsettling at times. So I got to hand it to the actress, if nothing else. Like she's doing a very good job in the role. But yeah, she's a little bit scary, a little bit intense. I can see that, Wayne. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. Kier, chosen one. Kier, brilliant one. Kier brings the bounty to the plane through the torment, through the rains. Progress, knowledge, show no fear. Chosen one. Kier. Season 1, Episode 6. Hide. Okay, there it is. There it is. Thank you so much, PM. That is the Kier hymn, the official Kier hymn right there, ladies and gents. Love it. Love it. Yeah, well, yeah, we might have to get PM to sing it on Saturday. Yeah, we might have to get, yeah, I think I agree with you there, Pam Jam. We might have to get our awesome PM to sing that for us on our Saturday stream. Yes, that might be fun. If she's up to it, of course. I would never pressure her into anything if she's up to it. I walk right by Larry Bird. Wow, while shopping with my daughters in the small Midwest town. Didn't speak to him though. Oh my God, that is awesome with Alice. I mean, again, I mean, I grew up in Boston, and the Celtics are always been heavily revered here by everybody. And yeah, Larry Bird was just the guy was just stone cold. He was such a stone cold killer when it came to the court of basketball, and huge fan. I've always been a huge fan, and that is where my 33 in my name does come from, a little homage to Larry Bird. But that is so awesome that you actually walked right by Larry Legend himself. Holy cow. You might have to snap a picture of him next time you see him and send it. I'd love to see that. That is so awesome. Wow, you are lucky. That is so cool. That is so cool. I like it because a lot of these mystery shows don't do that. Maybe Yellow Jackets a little bit, but it's different level. Yeah, Yellow Jackets is another one. I like the mystery aspect on Yellow Jackets because it's so ambiguous. Now, Yellow Jackets, it's one of those shows where at the end of the day, it's really hard to tell. Is this like really a supernatural force that is stalking them? Or is it simply just all psychological, and has it just been in their heads the whole time? That's one thing that I really like about Yellow Jackets. They're purposely leaving it ambiguous in terms of, is this supernatural or is this psychological? And I love that aspect. I kind of hope they keep that aspect. I kind of hopefully never find out which one it really is. But yeah, Yellow Jackets is another one that has a pretty good mystery aspect to it. There's a lot going on there. Yes, Jeremy singing would be entertaining. No, I don't know about that. I do not have a singing voice, I don't think. I don't think I have a singing voice. It's PM and Lily have been trying to get me to do karaoke in the Discord for weeks now, and I don't know if I'm up to it. I don't know if I'm ready yet. I don't know if I'm there. I don't know if I have the singing voice. I might send everybody scowling away in fear. I don't want to do that. I think she's not a child, and that's a possibility as well. I mean, like, there's so much that we don't know about what Lumon is really doing. Like, what kind of technology are they really working on? Like, what's really going down on down in that testing floor? I mean, yes, she has the body and the presentation of a child, but could there be an entirely different mind in there that we don't even know about? Maybe she isn't really a child. And even From has a similar aspect to this as well, where they have the character called the Boy in White. He presents himself as a little boy, but he's not a little boy. He's at the very least decades old, maybe centuries old for all we know. So yeah, it's tough to know. I mean, she might present as a child, but maybe she's not. Maybe she's not really a child. I think that's totally possible. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's time to read Frankenstein book. Honestly, I would definitely recommend it. The first printing, not the first printing, obviously, it's incredibly hard to find that, but the first edition, the first version of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It is incredibly dark, and it is incredibly twisted, and it does have a ton in common with Severance. You look at all the similarities between Kier in particular and Victor Frankenstein, everything that they were trying to do, everything that they were trying to achieve. the kind of similar themes woven in and out of Frankenstein and Severance in terms of the dangers of unnatural science with unchecked ambition, trying to create life where life was never meant to be. You know, the hubris of playing God. Like all of these themes are woven deep within both of these stories. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you're a really big if you're a really big Severance fan, and you like the kind of the kind of deeper aspects of it in terms of asking some of those questions, like, is it morally okay to create Sevies in the first place? You're bringing these lives into this world without their consent, you know, and in a sense, there is a a moral question to it. And yeah, Frankenstein is essentially the same thing. It is creating life out of death, unnatural life through unnatural means, simply just to play God in a sense. And Victor Frankenstein is very clear on that. He wants to be looked at as a godlike figure, and Kier very much wants to be looked at like a godlike figure. It's super similar between those two stories. So yeah, if you like the kind of Lumon Kier aspect of Severance and the lore behind it, yeah, I would highly recommend checking out the original Frankenstein novel from Mary Shelley. It's incredibly similar, absolutely incredibly similar. I also thought the Kier Chosen One was the Kier hymn. Ooh, interesting. Kier Chosen One, maybe. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. We got a legend in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see everybody in here this evening. Yes. Yeah, any time is a good time for Mary Shelley. It is Wild Marjoram. It really is. I mean, the original, I imagine you've probably read it. So if you've read it and you're watching Severance, then you know what I'm talking about in terms of those, some of the deeper themes woven in and out of these two different stories. In particular, again, with Victor Frankenstein and Kier Egan himself. These two characters are incredibly similar. These incredibly dark, maniacal, genius scientists that are going above and beyond to try and create life where life was never meant to be. And it asks the question of the morality of it, and ultimately leading to their downfall in the sense, which I do think it's going to happen similar to Lumon as well. I do ultimately think that it will be Lumon's creations, the Innies, that will ultimately lead to their downfall as well, just like Victor Frankenstein's monster led to his downfall. Your creations ultimately destroy you, especially when these creations are brought into the world through unnatural means just for the hubris of playing God. So yeah, the similarities are so crazy between those two stories. Absolutely. Cobell sings it. Remember, So Spooky. That was it. Okay, because I was wondering, where did we first hear the Kier hymn? That's what I was wondering, because I remember hearing it. I was going to say Irving for some reason, but it just didn't sit right. I can't recall Irving doing that. But now that you mention it, yes, it was Miss Cobell. It was Miss Cobell singing the Kier hymn. And yeah, super spooky. And I will say, Miss Cobell is a little bit spooky. Patricia Arquette, I don't know. She just has a way about her that she really can come off super trippy and super scary sometimes. I don't know if it's some of her facial expressions or some of her body language or her kind of like cool, calm, serial killer like demeanor that she usually has. But sometimes she can come off a little bit spooky. Except for when she is the one that is being spooked, of course, which was a very interesting scene to say the least. But yeah, she's a weird one, I must say. She's incredibly good casting for Miss Cobell, if nothing else. Like spot on casting with bringing in Patricia Arquette for sure. For sure. Yeah, she got fired for singing the Kier hymn. Indeed. Yeah, more Cobell. More Cobell, more cowbell. Indeed. More cowbell. And that was interesting. I didn't even realize that at first. Somebody pointed, I forget who, but I remember somebody pointed that out during my last week video when I did the little cowbell reference to the Christopher Walken with Gwendolyn Christie freaking ringing a cowbell. And yeah, I totally never even realized it. Miss Cobell, cowbell. I wonder if it is a little bit of a play on it or if that's just a coincidence. I don't know. But yeah, Miss Cobell is literally cowbell. It's fucking crazy. It is crazy, indeed. I think I will start to watch Yellow Jackets. It really is a good show. I mean, Yellow Jackets, it's definitely it's definitely not a show for people that are squeamish, I would say. Yellow Jackets does have some pretty raw scenes in it, some pretty bloody scenes that can, even me kind of make me want to look away sometimes. And I'm not usually a squeamish person, but yeah, Yellow Jackets, that's the only kind of disclaimer I would say to anybody wanting to get into Yellow Jackets. If you're squeamish, there might be some scenes that might be a little tough to get through. But other than that, the story is so good. The characters are so good. The ambiguous supernatural aspect of it is so good. They really have woven in two totally different timelines that just work very well together. It's a story that is set both in the past and in the present. So you have the younger version of the cast and the older version of the cast, and they just play so well off each other back and forth. Like, it really is a well written show. It's a it's just from conception, it's such a good show. But it is a little bit, there are some raw scenes, some really really raw scenes. So if I would not recommend it for squeamish people, but if you don't mind a few bloody scenes, some nasty bloody scenes, then yeah, I would say dive into some Yellow Jackets. It's good. It is good. That kid is almost as scary as that weird, creepy doll. Yeah, the weird, creepy doll, if you're talking about the one on From, so glad that that thing never ended up becoming a Chucky thing. Like, I really thought that would have cheapened the show of From a little bit. So I'm really glad they dodged that bullet. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my bias, but I'm not a big fan of Chucky. I'm not a big fan of reanimated and possessed dolls. I don't know. It's just kind of not my thing. I always used to get so upset, not upset, I used to get so angry kind of watching these Chucky movies back in the day and just seeing Chucky just take all these people out. And I'm thinking, this is a freaking doll that is 1 foot. Boot this thing through the upright. Set this thing on fire. How are you letting this little doll kill you all the time? He's crafty, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, he's a doll that's 1 foot tall, holding a kitchen knife. I'm sorry. The day I let something like that take me out is the day I deserve to die, in my opinion. Fucking, it's a doll. But then again, it could just be my bias. Could just be my bias. I am not a Chucky fan. I'm sorry. But 2 mystery shows is enough for me. Yeah, I mean, if mystery shows are your thing and you don't want to juggle too many at once, that's totally cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is a lot to kind of keep in your head, to kind of keep all of these mysteries in track and, keep this show to that show to that show. It's understandable. I mean, it's, not everybody wants to dive into a million different mystery shows. That's totally cool. Nothing wrong with that. Do you think this is outside Lumon or inside the building? Now, that's been another interesting discussion as well, because I did see somebody, I don't know who originated that, but I did see someone mention something similar, that this might not be outside at all, that this might actually be some kind of secret, underground floor at Lumon that is made to look like it is outside, similar to the goat farm. And again, I think it's an interesting aspect, but no, I think they're outside. I do think they're outside. Maybe not every single scene. We do see that one scene of Irving kind of walking up to what looks to be one of the MDR computers just in the middle of the woods, just in the middle of snowy woods. That scene definitely almost looked like it was Irving having maybe another dream, similar to the dreams that he has when all of the paint starts kind of overcoming his cubicle. So that could potentially be an indoor scene where he's maybe dreaming or having a little, vision or something. But this scene here, the scenes of them like on the cliff top, like we see like a legit cliff top here. I don't know. I do get the feeling they are really outside. Yes, personally. I mean, I could be wrong, absolutely. But I get the feeling they are really outside. It seems like the episode synopsis says that they are going to be gathering for a team building exercise. And it looks like this is going to be a Lumon approved team building exercise, because we know that Milchick and Miss Wong are both with them as well. So I do tend to think they are really outside. I think that's an interesting theory, though. I mean, you never really know what Lumon is capable of. Like, is this some other kind of test, or is this some kind of VR world, some kind of virtual reality world? That could very well explain how vast this looks, and the cliff tops and the snow and all of that. Like, if it is some kind of VR, that could be interesting. But not me personally. I do tend to think they are outside. I do tend to think this is the Innies outside. And I think it would be just a very interesting aspect to have the Innies outside like this. Because again, I mean, we know that they got a small, quick glimpse of the outside world at the end of season 1, but it was a super fast glimpse, and it was at nighttime. So they didn't really get a good chance to, again, stop and sightsee and see the world. This, though, if this really is happening the way that I think it might be happening, and it is the Innies outside, this is their really first chance to ever see what the world really looks like. They're seeing the world in broad daylight for the very first time. They're seeing snow for the first time. They're seeing trees for the first time, mountains for the first time. Like, this is all just completely new to all of them. So I really do hope that it is outside, and I hope it really is the Innies. I mean, who knows what's really going to be happening, but I do hope it is really outside, and I think it is. I do tend to think they are really outside. What do you guys think, though? I mean, I know that I know there have been some theories going around in terms of some people thinking that maybe they are on some kind of secret, severed Kier floor or some other kind of VR world or anything like that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Do you think they are really outside? Is this really even the Innies, too? And I guess that's another question we can ask that has been asked. Is this really the Innies? Like, are these really the Innies, or are these the outies that are actually out there? I don't know. I tend to think it is the Innies. I do tend to think that. I do tend to think whatever kind of team building exercise that they're doing, it does seem like it is Lumon approved, them having Milchick there with them. So I do think it is the Innies, and I do think they are really outside. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think. Is this one giant ploy? Is Lumon screwing with them? Is something totally different going on here, maybe? Totally possible. I suppose it is all possible. Absolutely. Is Helly actually Helena? Yes, Sin hates gays. Wow. I don't know. I don't know. This has been a question that has been going around ever since the beginning of the season. Is it really Helly that returned? Is it Helena? I don't know. I mean, I want it to be Helly, personally. Like, I would rather it be Helly. I feel like if it does turn out to be Helena, it's going to ruin some really, really good scenes between Mark and Helly. Like at the very beginning of the season, we get that super weird, super awkward scene between Helly, or whatever it is, Helly or Helena. We get that super awkward scene between Helly and Mark, where, you know, this is the first time they had really seen each other since the end of season 1, since Helly kissed him. Super awkward together. They know they have feelings for each other, but they're not quite sure how to navigate these feelings. They don't really know the intricacies of intimacy. Like, this is all just completely new to them. And you see that really awkward, kind of adorable scene between Mark and Helly, and they're just kind of standing there smiling at each other, both of them kind of afraid to make a move. You can tell they kind of wanted to kiss each other, but they were kind of afraid to make that move. So I feel like if it turns out that that was Helena the whole time, I just feel like it's going to ruin and cheapen some of those really good scenes that were set up. I don't know. I want it to be Helly, but there is definitely a lot of evidence for it being Helena. There is some evidence there. I mean, you can't deny that, at least. But yeah, what do you guys think? Is it Helena, or is it Helly? Did Helly really return to the severed floor, or has it been Helena the entire time? I'm dating myself, but I remember Patricia A. from Medium. Oh, yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Wow. Shit. I totally forgot about Medium. And Stigmata. Like, whenever I think of Patricia Arquette, one of the first films that comes to mind for me is Stigmata. Like, Stigmata was a pretty big film when it came out. It was probably like her biggest film up until that point. It really kind of propelled her into that like A-list category. So whenever I see Patricia Arquette, I just instantly think of Stigmata. That movie freaked me out as a kid. I did not like Stigmata as a kid. That movie was super creepy. I don't know. Something about Stigmata just rubbed me the wrong way when I watched it. Poor Chucky in the hands of Jeremy. I'll tear him up. Chucky, I'm sorry. No 1-foot doll is taking me down. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I don't think he's adorable. Chucky's kind of adorable, though. I'm sorry. Maybe it's just, again, maybe I am in the minority here, but I think the Chucky doll is probably the most hideous doll I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's hideous in my opinion. But again, it could just be my bias. It could totally just be my bias, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Everyone seems sure it's Helena down there, but no one talks about Helly running off the elevator in episode 1. Keep coming back to that and why I think it's Helly down there. Again, I really want it to be Helly, and that's actually a very good point, Johnny. That's actually a very good point. Everyone does seem to be pretty convinced that it is Helena, but there's a chance it might not be. There's definitely a chance it might not be. I know a lot of people like to point to the elevator dings where you see Irving, Mark, and Dylan getting into the elevator, and you hear the ding kind of signifying that they are maybe switching to their Innie form. And then when Helly gets into the elevator, she surprisingly doesn't have that same sound. So a lot of people have been pointing to that as, some more evidence that it really is Helena and not Helly. And again, it could be, it could be, but just for narrative purposes and for story purposes, I hope that it is Helly. I don't really want it to be Helena. I feel like it will cheapen some of the good scenes that we've already seen in season 2, but who knows? Who knows? Let's see what else we got. On PD's map, there's an area called Team Building, so maybe it's inside Lumon on the 7th floor, and maybe that's a very good possibility, Sky. Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about PD's map and all of the weird stuff he has written down there. I do believe you're right. He has that team building little area. Could that be it? Could this very well be inside Lumon the whole time? Maybe some giant room, or again, maybe some kind of VR room, some kind of virtual reality that they plug into. Maybe that could be possible. Absolutely could be possible. Yeah. Where are the Innies located? What state? That's a good question. That's a very good question. What state are they located in? Now, judging by the snow and everything, it definitely seems like they're probably, somewhere a little bit, in the north, maybe. But it's super hard to tell. It's super hard to tell. Just from like some of the landscape and stuff, I always get like a weird Pennsylvania vibe from them. Like I don't know why, but every time I see some of the stuff outside and around in the Severance world, it sometimes gives off a little bit of a Pennsylvania vibe for me. But I don't know. I have no idea. That's the $1 million question. Where exactly is it set in? I mean, the whole world of Severance in and of itself is pretty interesting. We hear in the very first episode of season 2, actually, when we're hearing the orientation video, narrated by the awesome Keanu Reeves. And he states that Lumon is operating in 206 different countries around the globe, which of course is a little tough to do considering our world that we live in doesn't even have 206 established different countries. I think we have around 195, 196 around there. But I don't know. What was that? Was that an indication that the number 206 is going to be important at some point? Or was that just an indication that this is a sci-fi world? I mean, this is a sci-fi series at the end of the day. This show is science fiction. So could it potentially just be like a different version of our world where it's a little bit similar and a little bit different all at the same time? Maybe it's a little bit of both. I really like the aesthetic of Severance, and that's one thing I've always really enjoyed since the very beginning, where it seems like we have a mix of all of these different kind of decades and time periods, where you'll see some stuff on the show that looks incredibly advanced and looks incredibly modern, like it's right out of the 2020s, like Helena's phone. We see her phone in at the end of episode 3, actually, right before Miss Cobell runs off in fear. And you pointed that out. I believe you pointed that out. She's got an iPhone, which, again, incredibly modern technology in terms of the phone that Helena has. But then you look at some of the other technology inside the Severance world, and it looks a lot older. It looks like it's straight out of the 70s or the 80s. You look at some of the computers, for instance. Like, these computers look like they are straight out of the 80s. These are not modern computers that they're working on by any means. And then you look at some of the vehicles. All of the vehicles look like they're straight out of the 70s as well. You look at like Milchick, for instance. So anytime he's in the break room with Helly, and he's making Helly kind of do the break room kind of reading over and over and over again, you see the headphones that he puts on. They're the kind of big old headphones that you would get like in the late 80s, early 90s, like those big muffed headphones. So that's one thing I've always really enjoyed about Severance. They do seem to blend all of these different decades and different time periods in a pretty interesting way where it is aesthetically pleasing. Like, again, you get a good mix of modern stuff, but you also get a good mix of some interesting stuff that looks very retro as well. So I do like that. I do like the aesthetic of it. It looks pretty interesting to me anyway. I like how they're mixing all these things. Maybe outside has to do with Cold Harbor. Maybe. I mean, like you said, Cold Harbor, yeah, that's been a huge, huge point ever since the beginning of the season. We know that Mark is working on Cold Harbor. And what exactly is that? What is Cold Harbor at the end of the day? What is this project? What is the end game of this project? We got that quick glimpse of Mark's wife um, down on the testing floor, which definitely indicates that Cold Harbor has something to do with her or whatever is happening to Gemma or Miss Casey. But what exactly is the broader scope to it? Why is it called Cold Harbor, for instance? Could this give us some kind of answer? I think that's totally possible. And whatever Cold Harbor is, I get the feeling we are going to learn exactly what it is in this season, probably by the season finale, because actually the finale, episode 10 of season 2, the title is Cold Harbor. So whatever Cold Harbor is, they're definitely working towards it. I have a feeling the Cold Harbor storyline will be a season 2 storyline that will get wrapped up this season, or at the very least will get answered this season. Maybe it'll continue into season 3, but I definitely get the feeling we're going to learn what Cold Harbor is this season. I don't think that's going to be something they drag on endlessly. I think we will get that answer in this season, definitely. And maybe it'll be in that finale. Maybe that's why they named the finale Cold Harbor, because they're finally going to give us that answer as to what this really is. What is Mark really working on? How big is this project? What is its end game? I do think we will find that out. I definitely think we will find that out. Indeed. Indeed. What is up, Xavier? Good to see you, my friend. I hope you are doing well. Always good to see you, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Do the other townspeople live in Kier? Like, wouldn't they think it's weird there? And that's the thing. I mean, when it looks, when you talk about Kier and this whole kind of Beard Creek Manor that they live in, it's not 100% sure, but it does seem like it is mostly Lumon employees that live there. It doesn't seem like there's many normal people out there. And that's why I always wondered why Mrs. Selvig didn't raise a bigger question to Mark S. Because Mark S says that to Petey early on, that these, this subdivision, these houses were built for the Lumon employees and they never quite filled all of them out. Yet his neighbor is this Mrs. Selvig lady who claims not to work at Lumon. She talked about running a flower shop or something. So I always wondered why that wasn't a bigger red flag for Mark. If Mark knew that these housing complexes were for Lumon employees, how come Mrs. Selvig never raised a question for him? Like, how come he was never suspicious of her? That everybody else living there is a Lumon employee, and then you just have this one random kooky old lady. I don't know. It's hard to tell. 'Tis hard to tell. It's the Innies. It's one of the trailers you see, the daily zoom of Irving while outside. Yeah, I definitely think it's the Innies. I mean, it's got to be the Innies. I mean, I just don't see the outies, the 4 outies, getting together like this, at least not this early. I mean, the outies, they don't even know each other at this point. None of the outies know who they're working with. Outie Dylan doesn't know Outie Irving. Outie Irving doesn't know Outie Mark. They just don't know each other. I mean, I find it hard to believe that they'll all meet in one episode and gather like this. So yeah, I totally agree. This has to be the Innies. It's got to be the Innies. And yes, we even see this little scene, this little clip, I should say, of Irving himself. Where are we? It's almost like they get activated when they're already out here, which could be very interesting in and of itself. I mean, do they just get activated out here? Do they come there themselves when they're already in any form? That's what I want to see, because yes, we get this one little clip of Irving seemingly looking up at something saying, where are we? And yes, I mean, this would be the perfect question that an Innie Irving would ask. Innie Irving has never seen anything like this. None of them have ever seen anything like this. They've never really seen snow or anything during the day. Again, they only get that one little glimpse of the outside world at the end of season 1, but it's nighttime. They don't really have time to really sightsee. But this is the first time they're really getting a true glimpse of what the outside world looks like. So yeah, I'm 100% convinced that it is the Innies. I think for it to be the outies would be very strange. It's got to be the Innies, especially with Milchick there with them as well. And this being a whole team building exercise episode, according to the synopsis, yeah, it definitely seems like that is like this is going to be the Innies 100%. And they're here doing some kind of team building exercise, whatever kind of weird team building exercise that Lumon has in store for them. Who fucking knows? But yeah, it definitely seems like that. Definitely seems like it is the Innies for sure. For sure. Awesome stuff. Let's see what else we got. Mark S looks like his innie. He's not hunched or gloomy. That's actually a good point. That's actually a very good point. Toothless Paste. Toothless Paste. That's a good name. I like that. Yeah, I mean, like you said, and Adam Scott has even talked about this a little bit, where he does change his posture depending on if he's playing outie Mark or innie Mark. Outie Mark does have bad posture. He is kind of slunched over all the time. It feels like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that's kind of how Adam Scott plays him. But when Adam Scott is playing innie Mark, he does have different. He does kind of straighten his back up a little bit more. He does stand a little bit more tall, and he does have a little bit of better posture. So that's a very good indication, a very good point that it is innie Mark. Yeah, he's not all slunched over like that. It's a very good point indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing I like about Adam Scott. Like, he really is a good actor. In terms of him, going that far to kind of separate his innie and his outie performance. So the audience members like us would notice small things like that. So that way we can notice, okay, this is his outie form. He is slumped over a little bit. This is outie Mark. Or yeah, he's standing up a little bit taller. This is the innie version. It is a brilliant technique on Adam Scott's part, I must say, to kind of switch up your posture depending on which you're playing, innie or outie. It's just a brilliant move on his part. Love that. Absolutely love that. Why was Helly running off the elevator? They woke her up the weekend and threatened her. That's why she's been acting off. It's Helly. I really want it to be Helly too. Like, I feel like it's going to be just from a writing standpoint, I think it's much better for it to be Helly. Now, I get the whole kind of, subversion of expectations and kind of having a nice, interesting twist like this. Like, oh, it's been Helena undercover the whole time, which could be cool too. Don't get me wrong. But from a writing standpoint, I think it being Helly would be better. Again, maybe that's just my personal opinion. Who knows what it's really going to be? I know there is definitely a lot of evidence pointing to it be Helena as well, and I know a lot of people do think it is really Helena, which again could very well be. But for me, I'm hoping it's Helly. I'm hoping it's the real deal Helly. Susie says it's Helena. Maybe it is, Susie. It might be Helena. You might be right. You never know. You never know. It might be Helena. There's definitely a big possibility, for sure. Did anybody else notice how Helena showed no surprise when Mark told her 5 months had passed, 100% Helena? Ooh, interesting. Now, that's an interesting idea. The whole 5-month thing we saw was clearly, a big lie on Milchick's part. Obviously, it had not really been 5 months. It had been closer to just a couple of days. And all of the surrounding evidence kind of was telling us that to begin with. But then we also got it confirmed on the Severance podcast that they did 100% confirm that it had only been a few days, which of course did make sense. I mean, hell, Milchick hadn't even unpacked in his new office yet. And hell, Miss Cobell's name was still on his computer, which was throwing him fits. So no, that's an interesting idea that, with her not blinking that it's been 5 months, maybe she was already privy to that knowledge that they were going to tell the Innies that, hey, let's tell them it's been 5 months. Let's let them believe that they won this major victory. I mean, the best way to get them to not rebel again is to make them think that their first rebellion was successful. Make it think that it had meaning. That's the best way to kind of, placate them and get them to never do something like this again. Make them think it was successful. So no, that's a possibility. I think that's good evidence. Definitely interesting evidence for sure. Yeah. The Innies are like kids. A kiss could be spontaneous in a dangerous scene, but in their normal life, yeah, and they are kind of like children in a sense. Like Mark S. He even talks about it. He's like, I'm 2 years, he's 2 years old. And Ben Stiller actually talked about a Easter egg that nobody had found in the very first episode of the very first season. The first time Mark opens his locker at Lumon and he goes to put in his wallet. And we actually took a look at it, PM and I, and we spotted it right away. On his license, he actually has 2 different birth dates. He has his birth date for his outie, which is 40 something around there, but he also has a second birth date on his license, which is 2 years old, indicating how long he's been severed, how long his severed version has been around, 2 years up until that point. And that was very interesting because, yeah, they are children in a sense. Like the Innies, they don't know about the world. They don't know about life. That's why we see, Mark and Helly or Helena, whoever it ends up being, at least on Mark's part, we see him being so awkward because he just doesn't know how to handle these feelings. The intricacies of intimacy is something you learn over time. That's not something you're just born knowing. You have to cultivate that. It's a skill. And it's just something he's completely foreign with. So yeah, you see him standing there in front of Helly or Helena. You can tell he kind of wants to kiss her, but he has no idea how to go about it. He's just giving her this wicked, weird, awkward smile. It's super fucking weird. But that's them at the end of the day, right? They are still children in a sense. They don't know much about the world. They don't know much about social cues and things like that. Like there's just so much they still need to learn. And I think that is an interesting aspect of the show, seeing these Innies go through life in terms of like figuring out their place in the world, figuring out where do they belong. Are they ever going to have a life of their own, or is this never ending toil of work the only thing they have to look forward to, kind of thing? It does present a lot of interesting questions. The reason is because the other people take 20 seconds on the elevator, and she takes 18 seconds, and they all have a B, a note play. But in hers, it used to be a G. This season, it's a B. Interesting. Yeah, the elevator ding was something that I saw a lot of people pointing out very early on. I mean, because we see individually each outie get on the elevator, and we specifically hear that ding, which could potentially be the indication of them switching from outie to innie as the elevator is going up. But when when Helena gets on the elevator, she doesn't have that ding. And I saw a lot of people pointing that out in terms of thinking that was evidence for it actually being Helena. And again, it very well could be. Very well could be. Helena, if I have to choose, Helly is pretty ambitious. I wouldn't be surprised if she's a traitor. Ooh, interesting. Interesting indeed. Someone else brought up something the other day that's a pretty interesting point as well. That speaking of that awkward scene between Helena or Helly, whatever it is, and Mark, the incredibly awkward scene of them two in the hallway. Not only is it incredibly awkward, yes, but you get to a point where you can see. Let me find it. You get to a point where you can tell they want to kiss each other. You can just tell, like you can really tell they want to kiss each other in this moment, and they don't. And one thing that I saw somebody pointing out, which again, it was a good point, was, I mean, would Helly hesitate? I mean, we saw how Helly kissed Mark at the end of season 1. She did not wait for permission. She did not wait for any kind of awkward little tension. She just went right for it, grabbed him, and kissed him. Helly does seem the type to kind of take the world by the horns, kind of thing. She doesn't seem the type to kind of just sit back and be bashful, I guess. So somebody was pointing out that maybe that's more evidence for it really being Helena, that she was so hesitant to kiss Mark in that scene, where Helly wasn't hesitant at all. She just went up and grabbed him. So I thought it was an interesting take, if nothing else. I mean, it's certainly not proof, but I thought it was an interesting observation on their part when they mentioned it. It's hard to know. Is this Helly? Is this Helena? Who is it? I go back and forth. I got to say, I do honestly go back and forth. At first, I thought it was 100% Helena. Like, it's definitely Helena. And then I started to see some small things that made me think, wait a minute, maybe it is really Helly. Maybe it's not Helena. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I feel like it could go either way. But I know it seems like most of the fandom, most people seem to think it's Helena. And again, the fandom might be right. Helena went through with Severance, and she could have lied. I think she would go back in as Helly, everything for the family. I mean, is it something that she would do willingly? Absolutely. I mean, we see Helena, especially Helena, after she knows she let her father down, which we see at the end of season 1, and even in the beginning of season 2, he comes up to her and calls her a fetid moppet, which again is still the best fucking insult I've ever heard in my life. Fetid moppet. But yes, I mean, after having that embarrassment, after knowing that she did let the company down, and she did let her Innie get the upper hand on her, I could totally see Helena being willing, at the very least, being willing to go onto that severed floor, being willing to take that risk to, not only make up for the mistake, but to help the company. She is a company girl at the end of the day. She's been kind of trained for this position her entire life to become the next CEO. So yeah, I could totally see, like, in terms of willingness, absolutely, I could totally see Helena being more than willing to enter the severed floor and kind of go undercover. And again, we do get that interesting scene between Helena and Cobell in episode 2, when Cobell suggests to Helena that we need to scrub all the feed, and you need to let me interview Dylan G. And Helena kind of cuts her off and says, we have a different idea in mind. And maybe that was the different idea. Maybe the different idea Helena was talking about was, no, we're not going to interview Dylan G. We're going to send somebody inside undercover to really get a close look at them, to get a look at them in their natural habitat, which is the best way to observe somebody. If you're going to observe somebody and you want to find out their true motives and what they're truly up to, you have to do it in a natural way where they have no idea you're looking at them. That's the only way they're ever going to be their natural selves. And yeah, the best way to do that is to send Helena in pretending to be Helly. They're going to think she's Helly, so they're going to feel comfortable doing everything they normally would, yet Helena will be able to observe them much closer and get that real raw data right from them. So yeah, it's again, in terms of the willingness there, yeah, Helena would be more than willing to hop on that severed floor, I think, definitely. R.I.P. Helly, you caused too much trouble and damage to Helena and Lumon, but I miss Helly R. I mean, if this really is Helena, then yeah, I am going to miss Helly R as well. I mean, Helly is just a better character in my opinion. And I actually talked about this last week. Now at first glance, you would think that the outies have the better life. And yes, they have all the control. They make the decisions. They're the ones living a real world in the outside. But when you take a deeper look at the lives of the outies and the lives of the Innies, I think there's a very good argument to be made that the Innies are living a far more fulfilling life, far more pleasing, even though it is a never-ending work toil. These Innies have a certain freedom that some of the outies don't have. Like Mark, for instance. Mark's outie is just, he's a slave to his grief at this point. He is handcuffed to his grief. He can't move on. He can't kind of continue life. He couldn't continue teaching, so he had to quit his job and come here and get a severed job just so he could kind of forget the pain of losing his wife just for a few hours a day. That is somebody that is incredibly damaged, that is incredibly crippled by their grief, to the point where he's not just out there living a fulfilling life. But then you look at any Mark, he is living a little bit more of a fulfilling life. I mean, he's got a job that he likes to do. He's got coworkers that he cares about and that care about him. He's falling in love with Helly. Any Mark, you can make an argument, does maybe have a little bit more joy and a little bit more of a fulfilling life than Outie Mark does. Outie Mark is miserable in all fronts. And then, something similar could be said for Helly and Helena as well. You look at Helena, and she, clearly lived a very sheltered life. She kind of, lived her life probably in a bubble, kind of, being trained to become this next CEO, this next kind of, CEO character of Lumon. And I imagine a life like that didn't afford a whole lot of freedom for her to just do whatever she wanted. I mean, she had responsibilities. It was the company first for her, I would imagine. So I imagine Helena didn't have the same degree of freedom that most people have, where she was kind of beholden to this position she would one day inherit. But then you look at Helly doesn't have those constraints. She doesn't have those obligations. Helly does have a little bit more freedom. She is free to laugh, to love, to have friends and coworkers that care about her. And Helena doesn't have that. And I think that's why when Helena sees Helly kiss Mark on the surveillance photo, she's so taken aback by it. At first I was wondering what kind of reaction is this? But the more I would see that scene, I feel like Helena, if anything, was a little bit envious, maybe a little bit envious of Helly for having something like that, something that Helena maybe never had. I imagine Helena has never had something like that kind of spontaneous love that she kind of just fell into. It just doesn't seem like her life would afford her that privilege. But Helly did. Helly has the freedom to kind of just love who she wants. and pursue Mark the way she wants. So I do think when Helena saw the kiss on the feed, I do think there was a little bit of envy there, a little bit of envy that wasn't her in a sense. So again, in my opinion, I think a good argument could be made that some of the Innies' lives are more fulfilling than the outies. And even Dylan. I mean, we're finally learning a little bit more about Dylan as well, and his outie. And we're learning that Dylan's outie is, kind of a fuck up. He can't hold a job like that. And then you look at Dylan's Innie, and he's great at his job. He loves his job. He's got coworkers he cares about. He does have a semblance of a life. And now that he's having these visits with his outie's family, you could totally see Innie Dylan starting to develop a love of his own. Like I imagine Innie Dylan, and Gretchen are definitely going to end up following each other. 100%. 100%. If Innie Dylan and Gretchen don't end up falling for each other, I'll be incredibly surprised. Like after the meeting they first had, you can tell they really hit it off. And of course, they're probably going to continue to have these kinds of meetings, these kinds of family visitation meetings. So I would be incredibly surprised if Innie Dylan and outie Gretchen don't end up developing something real. Where they do kind of end up developing feelings for each other. And I know that's the way they kind of wanted to play the scene. And it did kind of come off that way. It did come off like it was this kind of, awkward first meeting, but we're already kind of into each other kind of thing. So, yeah, again, I think there's a good argument to be made that some of these Innies are living maybe a little bit more fulfilling lives than their outies, where their outies are kind of constrained by responsibilities, by grief, by trauma. But there's so many different kind of ways you can look at it, I guess. Let's see what else we got. Helly never would have trusted the word of Lumon when they said they weren't being watched anymore. Yes, I mean, does anybody really believe Lumon at that point? I don't know. I mean, yes, of course, Milchick says that there's no cameras and they're not listening to them on the severed floor anymore, but come on. I mean, does anybody really buy that? I mean, we know that MDR is incredibly important to Lumon. Whatever work that Mark is doing on Cold Harbor is incredibly important to them. The Innies, the severed program in and of itself, is probably one of, if not their biggest asset in the entire company. And you mean to tell me they're not keeping a close eye on their biggest asset? And even if Helly is really Helena, one person on that severed floor is not enough to surveil the entire severed floor and keep an eye on everything. I mean, yes, it'll give you some nice inside information, but it's not enough. You need some kind of surveillance to keep an eye on things. So yeah, I'm not buying Milchick when he says that. Maybe Milchick might buy it. Maybe the board even told Milchick that they removed the cameras. Maybe he doesn't even know the truth. But I mean, with the Innies being, again, they're a huge asset to the company, there's no way they're not keeping tabs on them. There's no way. They are definitely still watching. And like you said, Ty, you bring up a good point. I mean, would Helly have ever trusted that that Lumon is not watching them? Maybe not. I mean, Helly definitely seems like she is more distrusting. Like she would at least question that. Yeah. So I could see that. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you see me coming, better step aside. A lot of men didn't. A lot of men died. Died one, fist of iron. The other, stealth, the right one. You don't. Then you get the one you left. Oh, jeez. Oh, shit. All right. Let's see what else we got. The outie world looks dark and depressing. No one has light bulbs. Yeah, the outie, again, the whole world of Severance, it's got an incredibly interesting aesthetic to it, and I do really enjoy it. The cinematography, for one, I cannot speak highly enough about the cinematography on Severance. Like, it is so beautiful. It is so crisp. It is so clean. Some of the wider landscape shots that we see in some of these episodes are just beautifully done. Like some of the episodes of, the getting a nice kind of drawn back look at the building of Lumon, or whether it's Mark kind of walking into the Lumon lobby. There are some really, really good cinematography shots in Severance. Like the cinematography is probably the best I've seen in a while. So I love the aesthetic, loving what they're doing there. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've looked at Helena funny when she took his hand and said, "We got you." Yeah, when she grabs Irving's hand, right? Yeah, yeah. At the very beginning, when Mark is handing out the missing persons photos, and they're all getting ready to go look for Miss Casey, and Mark is kind of sending them all out to their own department to look for them. Yeah, we get that one little scene of Helena, whoever she ends up being, grabbing Irving's hand and saying, "Don't worry, we got you." Yeah, it was a little bit awkward. Was a little bit awkward. Yeah. I mean, is that more evidence that it really is Helena? Maybe. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, this scene was just, I don't know, it was hilarious. This scene was so funny. And again, I gotta hand it to Adam Scott. The guy is such a good actor. Like, he really is a good freaking actor. He's always been funny, and anybody who's followed Adam Scott's career, I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen him in all of the numerous different comedy roles that he's been in, Parks and Rec, Step Brothers. He's been in a lot of really good roles. But I'm just surprised with how versatile of an actor he is. Like, he really does have range. He is capable of not only being hilarious, but he's also capable of delivering some of these more serious scenes and some of this more profound dialogue. Like, he really is good. I didn't know he had this kind of range as an actor. When an actor kind of gets pigeonholed into the kind of comedy routine and they start to become known only for comedy, sometimes it can be hard for the audience to kind of adjust to that actor or actress in a more serious role. And I think that's why so many comedy actors do try getting some serious roles every once in a while, because they want to be seen as a complete actor. They don't want to just be seen as a comedy actor. And I very much did see Adam Scott as a comedy actor for a while, but I mean, he's got the range. He really does. He can, obviously he's freaking hilarious, but he is capable of delivering some of these more serious scenes, some of these more emotional scenes. He's very capable at the end of the day. And just seeing him at Mo with some of his facial expressions and some of his body language is absolutely hilarious. This scene had me on the floor dying. Like, all the different awkward fucking faces that he makes, absolutely hilarious. He makes so many different awkward faces within the span of 30 seconds. It's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. And yeah, I got to hand it to him. The guy's a really good actor. He's a really good actor indeed. Heck, if we could end up caring about Snape in HP, we could surely see us doing the same for Helena eventually. I mean, maybe. I mean, anybody can have a redemption arc at the end of the day, and that's very true. I mean, I can't think of how many shows I've watched where some of the blackest of villains end up having good old-fashioned redemption arcs, and they end up being characters that you really end up rooting for eventually. So no, I could totally see that being the case. Like Helena, going undercover as Helly and spending so much time as Helly, maybe she will start to realize that maybe there is a little bit more of a freedom here. Maybe my life as Helena isn't what I really want. Maybe I do want something more. Maybe she does long for love. Maybe she does long to have friends and coworkers of her own instead of just subordinates and employees. So yeah, I could totally see Helena maybe having some kind of redemption arc at some point where she starts to realize that maybe she wants a little bit more in life than to just be the next CEO of Lumon. I could totally see that. Absolutely. And I love a good redemption arc. I love me a good redemption arc. Like, when a good redemption arc is written well, that's a really good fun arc to watch. And there's been some good ones. Dylan and his wife aren't around each other much if she works nights. Yeah, it seems that way. Yeah, it seems like she's working nights and he's at Lumon during the day. So yeah, it seems like they don't really probably spend a ton of time together. And that could play even more into Dylan's hands as well, where she starts visiting him more and more and more at Lumon, and they do start falling for each other more and more and more. And Dylan seems like the more optimal version of outie Dylan, where they're the same person, but Dylan, he seems to have his shit together much better than outie Dylan does. At the very least, he's got his shit together. So yeah, I could totally see something developing there. I think it will. I mean, I think I'll be more surprised if something doesn't develop there than if it does at this point. I'd be more shocked if it doesn't happen. Definitely. Gretchen is a double agent. She works for Lumon. If not, it would have been an actor. Innie Dillon would have been none the wiser. That's a good point as well. I mean, Innie Dillon has no idea what his Audie's wife really looks like. So essentially, they could kind of just plug anybody in there. And I was wondering that as well at first as well too. But I feel like once we see that shot of her at home with Audie Dillon, I feel like that kind of debunked that theory a little bit. I feel like once we saw her in her home life and we see that this actually is his wife. I mean, it looks that way anyway. I mean, she's at his house in the middle of the night. So if we only would have saw her during the visit with Dillon's Innie at Lumon, yes, I would have been totally sus to think, is this even really his wife? But since we did see her at home too with Audie Dillon, that's leading me to believe that she is the real deal. I think she's really his wife. And again, who knows? I could be wrong. Maybe there is a nice twist coming, and that could be very interesting too. I think Gretchen sees Innie Dillon more like the Audie Dillon when they first met. Yeah, I could totally see that. Like, yeah, again, he does seem like he is just a more optimal version of the Audie version, where he just got his shit together, where the Audie one doesn't. So yeah, I could totally see Gretchen seeing him in that light. Absolutely, absolutely. Dillon is so incompetent at taking care of his wife and children that his wife works the night shift, maybe even at Lumon as security or something. Ooh, now that would be interesting. Yeah, what is her job? I mean, yeah, we know she works nights, but what exactly does she do? Could she potentially be a Lumon employee as well? That maybe. Yeah, I think that's very possible. Very possible. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and like you said, in terms of Audie Dillon, he does seem a little bit incompetent. It's like he doesn't know how to do anything. She's kind of teaching him how to do everything. It's like he doesn't know how to make food or anything like that. Like he does seem like he is a little incompetent, I guess. So I think that's accurate. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Let's see what else we got. Is it possible Helena was reintegrated instead? Ooh, interesting, Ty. Interesting. Maybe. One thing I did find very interesting that Rahigby says to Mark at the end of episode 3. Now, when she kind of goes and meets Mark or finds him when he's in this kind of weird parking lot here, this scene here, when Rahigby kind of shows up to him, it's pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty interesting to say the least. Here she is. Now she shows up and she's like, "Are you trying to burn a message into your retina for your Innie to see?" He's like, "Yeah." Fucking so stupid. Go blind while you're at it, pal. But this was an interesting scene because Rahigby says something telling where, obviously Mark knows what happened to Petey when Petey went through his reintegration. Obviously, it ended up killing him. So clearly the procedure is dangerous to say the least. But one of the things Rahigby says is, "I'm better at the procedure now," indicating that she's done it a few more times since doing it to Petey. And if that's the case, who else did she do it to? I mean, did she maybe just get better because she studied upon it more? Or did she get better because she's done more procedures after Petey? I don't know. I mean, could there be other severed employees that have already been reintegrated on the severed floor that we don't even know about? And as you mentioned, could Helena herself maybe be one of them? I think that's totally possible. Again, I feel like this was a very telltale line from Rahigby saying that, "I'm better at the procedure now. I'm better at it now." How are you better at it now if you haven't done more of them since? So no, I think that's a possibility. I think there's definitely a possibility that there could be some other severed employees already reintegrated that we haven't even met yet, maybe not R4. I think R4 at MDR, whether it's Dillon, Irving, Helly, and Mark, I don't think any of them have fully been reintegrated other than Mark. But as you mentioned, Helena could be a possibility. Maybe after the stunt at the end of season 1, maybe after she saw her Innie take over her life, even just for a brief moment, maybe that scared Helena to get reintegrated. Maybe she didn't want to be severed anymore. Maybe she was afraid of Helly taking over again. Who knows? So yeah, I could totally see that being possible, where maybe she went and sought out Rahigby to get reintegrated because she just didn't want this burden on her anymore. She didn't want this fear on her anymore that Helly could take over at any moment. That's a scary thought. I mean, I imagine it's already a very weird feeling knowing you're living with kind of two personalities inside you to begin with. That in and of itself is probably already weird. But to know that there is this overtime contingency plan, knowing that at any point in time your innie can just take over your body, that's scary. I mean, that's a scary thought. And maybe that thought in and of itself scared Helena to the point where she did want to get reintegrated. I could totally see something like that, Ty. I think that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting idea. Good stuff. And who is Seth? The wife mentioned it, and Miss Wong said, "Shut it." Seth is Mr. Milchick's first name. We only hear it a few times in season one, but I mean, we obviously everyone refers to him as Mr. Milchick or as Milkshake now. He's freaking Milkshake. Yeah, Seth is Milkshake's first name. But yeah, that's his first name. It is Seth Milchick. That is his full name for sure. Ty, she could. If Mark got it done in a basement, why wouldn't she know someone else that could do it? Inside Lumon, even. Lumon is often hypocritical. I am sure they know how to do reintegration. I imagine they do too. And even though they acted like reintegration wasn't possible in season one, I still get the feeling that yes, if Higby can pull this off with like shoddy equipment in a freaking basement, you mean to tell me Lumon can't do it with all their sophisticated equipment? No way. No way. So no, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. If she can do it in a basement, I imagine Lumon could definitely do it too. Especially since they have gotten Petey's chip. Again, at the end of season one, we know that Miss Cobell does go to the funeral of Petey, and she freaking grabs the chip right out of his brain and brings it back to Lumon so they can study it to hopefully crack reintegration. Maybe they did. Maybe Petey's chip showed them how to successfully reintegrate somebody, maybe even in a better manner than Higby does it. So yeah, I could totally see something like that. Like again, if she can do it in a basement, Lumon can probably do it with all of their expertise as well, for sure. He looks like Tom Cruise. He really does. I mean, it wasn't just the run. He legit looked like Tom Cruise. Like when you go back to that first episode, and he's coming off of that elevator. Yes, the run was incredibly Tom Cruise-esque, and Adam Scott did mention that he studied tons of footage of Tom Cruise running because he wanted to replicate that very famous Tom Cruise run. Tom Cruise is famous for kind of, or at least known in Hollywood for having the best run, being one of the best runners. So yes, he studied him for months to kind of get his movements down, to get his arm kind of movements down and everything else. And he did incredibly well. Like he really did channel his inner Tom Cruise there, but it was a little bit more than that. It wasn't just the run, like even his face, his hair, he did resemble Tom Cruise a bit in that first episode in more ways than just the running. Absolutely. I totally saw that. Hell yeah. Absolutely. I think she works at Lumon and Seth is her manager. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Maybe. Again, there's so much going on the show that I fucking love diving into it because we really have no idea where it's going. But there are some telltale signs that have been, have been some interesting foreshadowing, if nothing else. I think is Mark S. best acting role. Yeah, absolutely. Adam Scott, I definitely think this is his best role. Yeah, I mean he's had some pretty good roles. I mean he is hilarious. He's been super funny in a lot of different roles. Like he played a really hilarious brother in Step Brothers, the younger brother to John C. Reilly's character. And he was fucking hilarious in that movie. Like that was one of his funniest roles ever. He had me dying in the first Step Brothers movie, Adam Scott. But this, yeah, I would definitely say this is his best role yet. I feel like if nothing else, this role has given him the best chance to really showcase his acting ability, where he can play, he can kind of showcase his comedy side a little bit. He can showcase his serious side a little bit. He can showcase his heartbroken side a little bit. We do see Mark, between the innie and the outie, go through a ton of different emotions. And yeah, I do think this is his best role in terms of being able to showcase the full range of an actor that he really is. And he's good. He's a really good actor. He's a way better actor than I used to give him credit for. And I fully admit that now. He's good. He's really good. I like the theory that Miss Wong is Mark and Miss Casey's daughter. Woo, interesting. Interesting. And yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. I have heard people talking about that. I mean, I just don't know if it's possible. I mean, we know what happened to Miss Casey or what happened to Mark's wife Gemma. You know, it didn't happen long enough for their kid to be that old, I would think. I mean, it only happened a few years ago. So I don't know if enough time has passed for Mark and Gemma's kid to grow as much as Miss Huang has. Maybe. I mean, who knows? But I believe it was only a few years that Gemma had been dead, and Mark had been severed for around 2 years or so. So I don't know if she is. I don't know if enough time has passed for that to be possible. I don't know. Murphy from the 100 might be the best redemption arc in history. Yes, 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 Captain Cardwell. That was actually a really good redemption arc. The 100 was actually a surprisingly good show. I'm not usually, you know, some CW shows can be a little for me personally. They're just not very well written usually and not very well casted. But The 100 was one of those shows that it was like genuinely a good show for many, many years. And yeah, Murphy started off as the biggest dickhead, didn't he? Like he was such an asshole at the beginning. Like in season 1, Murphy was straight up villain. Like he was a villain. But yeah, he had a really good redemption arc where he really started to grow and evolve as a character, and he became a very valued member of the 100 to the point where he helped them out of tons of scrapes. Yeah, I think that's a really good redemption arc. That's a great example of a good redemption arc. Absolutely. Absolutely. Innie Dylan is horny. Maybe. Well, again, that's the thing. These innies, they know nothing about life. You know, like they know. I imagine they know nothing about any of that. You know, they're still children at the end of the day, but they probably still have urges, you know, wants and needs like any human does. Maybe. So yeah, I mean, you know, maybe Innie Dylan wants to experience a little live. Maybe. I think Snake would have been a better dude if he had a real friend as a boy. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. And yeah, Snape, again, I'm not very well versed on Harry Potter myself. It's just never really my franchise. I just never really had a chance to get into it. I'm more of a Song of Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings guy myself. But from what I can gather, I guess Snape had a semi redemption arc or something, didn't he? I guess because I know he started off as a villain, and I know he ends up helping a little bit later on. But again, I am not very well versed in Harry Potter. That is not my expertise. You know, you want to talk Tolkien, you want to talk A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm there all day. But I don't know enough about Harry Potter, unfortunately. Sorry, Dylan. I calls it like I sees it. How does she know where he'd be? Is Rahigby working with Devin? Now that's a very interesting question as well, because I wondered that too. How the heck did Rahigby know where Mark was? I mean, it seems like he's just in a random parking lot somewhere, just in the middle of nowhere. It looks like, and she just shows up right in front of his fucking car and scares the fuck out of him. Yeah, how the hell did she know where she is? Working with Devin, that's an interesting idea. Devin, or maybe even freaking what's his name? Oh, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. PM, help me out. Cult leader, help me out. How am I blanking on his name? Rickon, excuse me, Rickon. You know, Rickon's another interesting character. Yeah, who knows? I mean, could Rahigby secretly be working with Devin or Rickon? Maybe, maybe maybe that's possible. Maybe Rahigby approached Devin, telling her, you know, I can help your brother. I can help your brother, you know, reintegrate, kind of thing. And maybe she filled him in on where he was. I think it's a possibility. Yeah, I think that's totally possible. Who knows? In season 1, reintegration was seen as a myth by Lumon. Exactly, like Lumon thought it wasn't possible, or at least Miss Cobell thought it wasn't possible. I don't know how much the higher ups at Lumon thought it wasn't possible, but at the very least, Miss Cobell thought it wasn't possible. But again, how much does Miss Cobell know? Are they filling her in on everything, kind of thing? Maybe, maybe not. But yes, that is a good point, because in season 1, that is why they grabbed Petey's chip. That's why she goes to the funeral and grabs Petey's chip. She wants to hopefully crack the code for reintegration, because Rahigby clearly had done it. So yeah, maybe they didn't know. Maybe it wasn't just Miss Cobell. Maybe all of Lumon really didn't have an answer for reintegration until they found Petey's chip. That's definitely possible. Maybe Bert after Irv came knocking. Helly has already tried to kill Helena once. She did, and in a very clever way too. I must say, I thought it was super clever in terms of Helly kind of hanging herself in the elevator. That way, when the elevator comes down and she switches over to Helena, she's already fucking hanging like that. Like that's super scary and that's super genius. That's like maniacal genius level shit right there. Very Machiavellian. I thought that was a very ingenious way for her to try and kill not only herself but kill Helena. It's her killing herself, but in a sense, it's her killing herself in a way where she herself doesn't have to experience her own death. She knows she's going to go down that elevator and switch over to Helena. Helena's going to be the one who actually experiences the death. But unfortunately, the elevator ends up coming back to the severed floor and they switch back over, which she wasn't accounting for. But it was a good plan. It was definitely a good plan, if nothing else. I got to give Helly some credit there. She had some really good intuition there in terms of coming up with that plan to kill herself and Helena in one fell swoop in a manner where Helena will actually feel the death. So yeah, that was a very good idea. Very good plan on her part. I'm curious about Helena's driver and his connection to Miss Cobell. Ooh, interesting. If you're connected, if that's something you want to learn a little bit more about, I would highly suggest checking out my latest video. I went pretty deep into a little tinfoil theory along that, which ties into the Bear Creek Bandit and how I think Miss Cobell herself is the Bear Creek Bandit. And I think we have a scene in season 1 that is a pretty telltale sign pointing to Miss Cobell being the Bear Creek Bandit. And that's all I'll say all I'll say about that. But if you want to learn more, I would highly suggest checking out my video I uploaded yesterday. I go very in deep on that and where I think that's going. And I think it's interesting. I think there's some interesting stuff going there. It was pretty weird to see Miss Cobell that afraid. She's usually always super calm, super cool, never gets rattled. She was so scared in that scene. And I do think it was because of the bodyguard. Absolutely. 100%. I think that bodyguard is not a mere bodyguard. I looked up what flavor is Seth on Google is a vape flavor, a blend of coffee, cookie, and rich sweetness, Seth flavored milkshake. What the fuck? What the fuck? Hey, you learn something new every day, right, Samuel? You learn something new every day, my friend. Oh God, I'm not reading that. I am not reading that, Wild Marjoram. I am not reading that. I'll leave it on the screen for a second. I am not reading that though. Fuck. Yeah, I'm not reading that either. Fuck, I gotta get out of here. You guys are killing me. What are you doing? What you doing? Fuck. The Innies know more about life than half these silly goosies. They kind of do. I mean, even though they're super new, they're still like children in a sense. A lot of these Innies do seem to have a certain freedom that the outies don't have. And I know that sounds maybe kind of convoluted considering their position, considering the outies are the ones that are in control. But in terms of their emotions, in terms of what they're free to pursue, some of these Innies are just a little bit more free to pursue life and friendships and happiness, where some of these outies are kind of held down by their real life world constraints, whether it's Helena and the company, whether it's Mark and his grief. These outies have things weighing them down where the Innies don't. I think a very good argument can be made that the Innies are living a more fulfilling life, at least to a certain extent, maybe. At least to a certain extent. That Lincoln Continental Helena was in was clean, the same model JFK was assassinated in. Yeah, they're really enjoying the JFK throwbacks in the season. Even in the very beginning of season 2, episode 1, when Mark first comes back to work and Milchick hands him the newspaper and says, "Oh, you guys are the conquering heroes, the faces of Severance reform." And he shows him that super obviously photoshopped version of that freaking shot right of JFK's assassination, right before it happens, with all of the Severance workers photoshopped inside the car. And photoshopped inside the car standing up in it, too. It was just so awkward. But hey, that's Lumon for you. They will go to great lengths to manipulate these Innies into giving them that feeling that they won something, that they achieved some kind of victory. That way they won't rebel again. And it's manipulation tactics 101, and it's effective. It is effective, very effective. Let's see what else we got. That was a sneaky little jump scare. Mark said they have tried to have kids, and I believe she said used IVF, but it didn't work. I think you're right. I do vaguely remember something like that. Yeah. What if it did work and Lumon part of the IVF company and stole her eggs, and she found out she had a child? Ooh, interesting. Halfway to somewhere. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Maybe. I mean, I could totally see Lumon being devious enough to do that in a freaking heartbeat. I mean, if they're devious enough to, either fake Gemma's death or, grab her body and bring her back, whatever the hell they did to get her in the first place, yes, this is a company that is not afraid to cross some lines at the very least. So yeah, I could totally see Lumon be willing to do something like that. Absolutely. Hell yeah. Absolutely, I could totally see that for sure. Is Devin going to talk to journalists? Interesting. I don't know. I mean, what would she really say at the end of the day? There's really no hard evidence or anything she really has to bring to a journalist. When you talk to a journalist, when you want to be a whistleblower, you need to have a whistle. You got to have something to give them. You need to have something concrete, some cold, hard evidence against Lumon before any journalist will ever take on that story. Because you have to imagine, Lumon is a massive, massive entity within this world. I imagine there's tons of journalists that are already in their pocket, or at the very least afraid to go against them. So if you're going to find that one journalist that isn't afraid to kind of go up against Lumon, they're going to need the smoking gun. They're going to need something definitive to go against them with. And I just don't think Devin has that level of evidence yet. She might try to, but if the journalist has any brains in them whatsoever, they're going to turn her down unless she has something definitive that they can show, something definitive they can put in print and show the rest of the world, because Lumon is just too powerful. They will snuff that out in a heartbeat. They're just too big. They're too powerful, unfortunately. Inside Lumon, so they took her out, or she agreed to get severed if she could. Now, that's also an interesting idea. Like, I mean, we're all assuming that Gemma got snatched and taken, but what if she didn't? What if she actually chose to get severed? Like, if she did find out she had a kid and she chose to get severed to be with her kid, like maybe that's something. I think that's a possibility. Yeah, like, again, the whole fandom is already kind of convinced that she got taken by Lumon, but what if there's something more to the story? What if she's kind of there of her own free will, or at least her outie was there of her own free will, and she volunteered for this process, for this kind of procedure, this cold storage, whatever is going on? I think that's possible, and I think that would be an interesting twist too, where Mark, I imagine Mark is completely convinced that Lumon, took her against her will. It would be a pretty nice, interesting twist, kind of heartbreaking in a sense as well, if Mark goes through all of this to finally get Gemma back, only to find out that she was there of her own free will. That's an interesting twist, and that's kind of a gut punch for Mark as well. And I think that could be an interesting idea. I think that's an interesting concept. Yeah. I can't wait for episode 4. I cannot wait for episode 4 either, Wash Gun. I have a pretty interesting preview of episode 4 that I'm going to be uploading on the channel as soon as I'm done with the stream. It'll premiere either late night tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And it's a pretty interesting preview of episode 4. But from what I'm hearing, episode 4 is going to be the biggest episode of the season. Adam Scott has already said that episode 4 was his most insane episode he has ever filmed on Severance. Out of all of them, out of all of season 1, out of all of season 2, episode 4 was the craziest episode he's ever filmed, he said. And apparently there are some pretty big revelations coming in episode 4. Apparently there are some pretty huge fan theories that are going to get definitively answered. And I hear it's also being described as mind-bending, trippy, out of this world kind of thing. Whatever's coming in episode 4, it's big. Like, they have something very big planned for episode 4, and I cannot wait to see what it is. People are describing it as the episode that will change Severance forever. Like, going forward after episode 4, Severance will never be the same. That's how I'm hearing a lot of people describe it. So, yeah, I don't know what's coming, but it seems like episode 4 is going to be a massive one, like an absolutely massive one with huge reveals and huge answers coming that are only going to lead to more questions as well. And I know, PM, I forgot for a split second. I can't believe it. I'm so ashamed of myself. Yes, how dare you forget our beloved cult leader, Dr. Rickon of the URR cult. He really is great. I mean, I love the character of Rickon. He's super goofy, but he puts a smile on my face every time the dude's on screen. Every time I hear his voice, it's just so soothing, and he's just, yeah, I mean, he comes across like he's so wise, even though the stuff he's saying is absolutely ridiculous. But I don't know. I like him. I really like him as a character. I think the actor's putting on a phenomenal performance as Rickon. And he's just, I don't know, that, yeah, he's got that kind of cult leader fucking vibe to him, doesn't he? He really does. And I know, I can't believe I forgot his name. I did remember it right away, but for a split second there, I did forget his name. I am sorry. I am ashamed. I am ashamed. I deserve to be shamed. So if that means the shame bell comes out, then screw it.
Shame! Shame! Or hail royalty! Shame! Shame on me. Shame on me. Ricker was a colonel in the Cold Harbor War. Interesting. The board can do reintegration. They just don't want others to know they can do it. And that's what I was always kind of under the assumption as well. Like maybe Cobell was under the assumption that they didn't know how to do reintegration, but maybe it's something they have cracked the code on the entire time. It's just something they don't want people knowing is a possibility because they don't want people reintegrating. We heard from Jamie, at the end of season 1, Helena's father, and that was his goal. He straight up tells Helena that the goal is to get every human on the planet chipped. He wants these chips inside everybody. So if there is a process out there that can reverse these chips, then yeah, I imagine that's something Lumon is not going to want people to know. That's something that they will probably reserve only for their closest inner circle, I would imagine. But yeah, I would be very surprised if they couldn't reintegrate too. I imagine they can. It's just something they don't want people to know about. So yeah, I do agree there. I definitely agree there. And I do need to read it. And I'm hearing some very interesting things about this, the URU book that Apple has recently come out. And I got to say, they are killing it on the marketing for this show. Like Apple TV has put some of their most genius brains on marketing for Severance. Some of the things that they're coming out with is so ingenious, whether it's the real wellness sessions you can take, whether it's the actual MDR game you can play, and the actual MDR game that you can play where you're really looking for the scary numbers and you're completing 100% of a bunch of different files. There's actually a game out there you can play that you do the exact same thing that the MDR workers do. You sit there at a computer and you complete all these files. And we've even played it. It's pretty fun. And yeah, I gotta say, they're nailing it in terms of like really good, clever marketing strategies for this show. They are killing it, and that's the latest one right there. Actually, coming out with a Rickon self-help book, like a full-on Rickon self-help book that all of us can go and read and listen to, and it's free. Apparently, it's free on iTunes, I guess. Or Apple Pod. It's I know it's free for Apple users. Unfortunately, I am not an Apple user myself. I have always had Android, so I don't have access to it. So I'm gonna have to find somebody that has it and get a copy of it because I do need to read that thing. I'm hearing a lot of interesting stuff. And yes, Xavier, he's a sex god. That's what I heard as well. Yeah, PM was telling me a little bit about it. And apparently there's some raunchy stuff in there, some really raunchy stuff in there. Even like a Rickon origin story where you find out that Rickon was basically like an art project. Like Rickon's parents created him, conceived him in front of a bunch of people as an art project. Like he's literally an art project. That's how he was born, which is just super trippy and super weird. And yeah, you can totally see, like, I guess why maybe he gets all this weird kind of, I wasn't expecting for there to be, Rickon sex god on my bingo card. It's just not something I thought was going to be there. But shit, apparently it is. Apparently it is. Oh, man. Let's see what else we got. Do you think the whole city could be severed, and that's the reason why Cobell drove back to Lumon, or she had already felt like Helly? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. I don't know. I mean, shit, I've never thought of that. I have never thought of that. Black King of the Pirates. That's an interesting idea. Could they all be severed for all we know? Again, Lumen's goal, we hear right from Jay Megan's mouth at the end of season 1, their goal is to get these chips into every single person on the planet. That is the end game. They want everybody on the planet chipped eventually. So could we see more people chipped in the outside world than we really know about? I think that could totally be possible. I think that could absolutely be possible. I mean, we're under the assumption that Cobell and Milchick and all these characters aren't chipped, but how do we know for sure, really? Could they really be chipped at the end of the day? Maybe. I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. Rickon has great insight into the human experience. That's why Devin that's what Devin probably sees in him. The same thing all of his fans do in the show. Again, he's super weird and quirky and trippy, and some of the stuff he says is a little ridiculous. But yeah, like there's that small part of him that does seem to have this kind of small insight, where he does every once in a while say something kind of profound. And that's why I do really need to read that book, because it's, from what I hear, there's some pretty interesting stuff in there. Some pretty interesting stuff, to say the least. Could Drummond and Rickon be brothers? Maybe Rickon is severed and on permanent OTC as an innie on the outside. Ooh, interesting, Jen. Interesting. Maybe. Shit. Maybe. I've always had the feeling that Rickon is going to have a bigger part on the story than just the weird brother-in-law. You know, the quirky, out there, new age brother-in-law. I've always got the feeling that there's going to be more to Rickon than that. And maybe it's that. Who knows? Maybe he really is going to have a deeper tie to this story. Maybe he really is severed for all we know. I don't know. But something always told me that Rickon is going to have a deeper, more important role to play at some point. I don't think he's going to be just the weird, quirky, new age stepbrother forever. I do think they have a bigger plan for Rickon. What that is, I don't know, but I've always got the feeling that there's something more there that hasn't been uncovered. Just like Christopher Walken's character, Burr. There's no way Burr is just Burr. Like I'm so convinced that Burr is more than just Burr. And that is another thing that we're going to see in episode 4, where apparently Innie Irving, comes across something that makes him distrust a close friend. Now, who is this close friend that he begins to distrust? I don't know, but part of me is thinking that it is going to be Burr. I get the feeling we're going to find something out about Burr in episode 4, or Irving is going to find something out about Burr in episode 4 that is going to make him question, at the very least, as to who he really is. Because again, Christopher Walken, the guy's just way too good an actor. There's no way they cast him in the role only to play that Burt character. Something else is going on with Burt. Something deeper is definitely going on with Burt. I am so convinced of that. And I can't wait to find out what it is. Cannot wait. In the real world, looks mean nothing if you don't have the personality to back it up. Eventually it looks fake. Yeah. And one line I really like at the beginning of season 2 from Irving, actually, when they are in the new break room, and he just straight up says, it's not our world up there. Because it's not, unfortunately. Like, it's a foreign world. It's everything up there is completely foreign to them. They just don't know how this world works. Now, I imagine that they eventually want to learn how it works, but yes, at this point, the Innies world, it is unfortunately on the severed floor. That is their home. That is what they know. That's all they've ever known. That world up there just isn't their world yet, but I do think it will be. I do think it ultimately will be. Again, when this show ends, when all is said and done, I am very convinced that it will be the Innies who strike the ultimate blow against Lumon. It's not going to be the outies. The outies are not going to be the hero of this story. It will be the Innies. I am so sure of that. The Innies are definitely going to be the ones that are going to take down Lumon in the long run. It will not be the outies. I just don't see that being the case. Don't see that being the case. Like Boyd said, we need concrete evidence. Exactly. Yes. If anyone was ever going to go to any kind of journalist to try and, blow the whistle on Lumon and do something like that, yeah, you got to have concrete evidence. You got to have something really solid that you can go on, something that they can print and that's going to make noise, something that Lumon can't just snuff out in the drop of a hat. They need something big. They need something profound. And thank you for that, PM. I very much appreciate you. Thank you. And I will definitely read it. I promise. I will read it. I will read it. I will definitely read it. And yeah, exactly, Xavier. I got to read it for research purposes. It's just solely for the channel. I promise. Solely for the channel. It's the only reason I'm reading it. But yeah, I will definitely read it. I will check it out because I imagine it's, again, from what you told me, there's some pretty interesting things in there. There is some pretty interesting things in there from what you said. So yeah, I definitely look forward to reading it for sure. I got some concussions too. I got way better, but for some years it was rough. Have you ever heard of an EMDR or neurofeedback? It really helped me. Ooh, interesting. I've had a few concussions in my day. I must say, between boxing and basketball, I've had a few concussions in my day, and they're never fun. Like getting a bad concussion can be very dangerous. You got to make sure you stay awake. You can't fall asleep. You can slip into a coma. It could be dangerous. Like concussions are no joke, and that's not even to mention all of the long term, brain damage that they can do to you in the long run. You get a concussion now, 10 years from now, it can really fuck you up bad. So yeah, concussions, they can be dangerous. I'm sorry that you experienced that. I hope everything is well. Hope everything is well. All right, let's see what else we got. He is totally involved. Why would it have been so cool? Like he's banging on the door and then it's just whatever. Yeah, there's something up with Bert, 100%. And I think there's a lot up with Outie Irving as well. Like Outie Irving is still a pretty big mystery too. We really know nothing about Outie Irving. Yes, we know that he was researching Lumon, and it looks like he was trying to track down severed employees. Like, his Innie finds all of this info that Outie Irving has been collecting. And again, for anybody who isn't subscribed to PM Philosophy, definitely get over there and give her a sub. She's got a really good video on Irving and that phone call, the mysterious phone call that Irving makes inside the phone booth. I really think her theory is probably the best one on it in terms of what is really going on with Outie Irving, because again, he's a character we know nothing about still. In terms of some of these outies, like we're finally learning a little bit more about Dylan, but in terms of Irving, there is still so much we don't know about Irving's outie. And again, I think he's going to be a bigger player. I think he's going to be a bigger player, and I would definitely urge everybody. I'll drop the link in the chat. There it is. I would definitely urge everybody to sub to PM Philosophy. Check out her latest video on Irving and that mysterious phone call. And I think that could be very telling as to who Irving really is. And who knows? I do think that he might even potentially be working with the same people that reintegrated Petey. Maybe Outie Irving is already a member of the rebellion, for all we know. Maybe he's already working with Brahigby. I could totally see that being the case. But yes, definitely check out PM's channel and check out her latest video. It's probably the best Irving video I've seen on that phone call yet. Calling it now, Rickon is a plant. Yes, he's weird. It's almost like Milchick wanted the Innies to find that book, and his conception sounds like a cult ritual. Yeah, it was interesting how Milchick kind of just left that book right there, knowing that the Innies could walk by at any point in time and find it. I mean, he just leaves it there. And I do love the scene where Milchick's reading it, and he's like laughing his ass off like this dude's crazy. But yes, I mean, that book goes on to be like a freaking Bible to the Innies. The Innies learn so much about life through Rickon, through his You Is You book. And it just goes to show that they are so young. There's so much about the world that they don't know. So they see the freaking first self-help book that they've ever seen, first book that they've probably ever seen in general. And they just dive head first into it. They love Rickon. They're worshiping Rickon practically by the time they're done reading his book. I mean, even Innie Mark, when he finally switches over in the outside world and he sees Rickon for the first time, it looks like he's flabbergasted to find out, like, holy shit, this guy's my brother-in-law. And he goes, and I love that scene between Innie Mark and Rickon. When Rickon, he goes up to him, he says, I read your book. It taught me so much. And Rickon's like, yeah, it's okay, Mark. I know how you really feel about me. And he's like, no, really, I read it and it really taught me so much. And you could just see the smile on Rickon's face. Like that really meant the world to Rickon, the thought of Mark reading his book. Because you can tell Rickon really wants Mark to like him. He does. He really looks up to him as a brother-in-law, I feel. And I think that was very telling when Rickon was going to drop the book off at Mark's house in the first place. And he's super nervous. He doesn't know, should I leave it leaning up against the door? Should I leave it leaning up against the house? He's all indecisive. He wants it to be perfect. Rickon does genuinely seem like he really wants Mark to like it. And I think that was a really touching scene between Mark's Innie and Rickon there, and at the end of season 1, where he kind of comes up to him and he gives him that kind of that praise, that kind of that compliment that he's always been looking for from Mark, in a sense. Yes, he might later on find out that it was his Innie the whole time, but I think it still means a lot to him. I think it still means a lot to him. He's totally involved. Why would it have been so cool? Like he's banging on the door. Yeah, and again, I think you're right. I think it could potentially be a little bit more going on there than meets the eye, for sure, absolutely. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Bert is still working for Lumon as a spy on the outside, Frank White style. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I could totally see that. Absolutely, I could totally see that being the case. Again, there's got to be something more to him. I mean, I think it was pretty telltale when we saw him following Outie Irving. Now, could he potentially just have been following him because this was the same crazy guy that was beating on his door a few days earlier? Or is there something a little bit deeper? I don't know. I feel like the way Christopher Walken, the way Bert was looking at Irving when he went into that phone booth, it looked like there was something more there. So yeah, I do agree. I mean, I would not be surprised if he is still working for Lumon in some kind of capacity, and he's gathering some kind of intel on the outies. I mean, maybe Lumon wants info on the outies as much as the Innies. I could totally see that being the case. I mean, they are incredibly invested in these Innies completing their work, completing MDR, completing Cold Harbor. Lumon is incredibly invested in them. So if you're that invested in something, you would probably want to know all aspects of it. You would want to know what they're doing at work, obviously, but you would probably also want to know what they're doing the day in their outie form as well. So yeah, I could totally see Lumon keeping tabs on all of the outies and having somebody in their personal life that is a plant in a sense. Maybe Bert is that plant for Irving. Maybe Rickon is that plant for Mark. Maybe there's a plant. Maybe Dylan's wife is that plant for Dylan. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if Lumon is keeping an eye on them on the outside to learn a little bit more about their outies just as much as their Innies. Absolutely. I think something happened to his dad because of Severance. Maybe his related to Cobell. Ooh, interesting. Rickon, I imagine you're speaking of. I mean, who knows? There is an interesting theory out there. I saw a video on it not too long ago. Pretty interesting tinfoily theory, but it was still interesting nonetheless, of Rickon potentially being an Egan. And I thought that was, again, maybe, who knows? We have no idea what's going on this show, and that's what's so fun about it. It's so fun to kind of dive into and try and solve what is really happening. I really do enjoy shows like this that genuinely challenge me and really make me think. But yeah, who is Rickon really? Is he just the quirky brother-in-law, or is there a deeper side to Rickon? Is there something else that Rickon has not revealed yet? And again, him being a secret Egan is an interesting theory. It's an interesting theory. There's not a whole lot of evidence to back it up, but it's an interesting theory nonetheless. Absolutely. In Rickon's book, he stated Mark told him after Gemma died that he was a joke, and they laughed at him. He was heartbroken. He was, yes. Oh my God, that's so sad, because you can kind of tell Rickon really does want his brother's approval. Like that's all he wants is for Mark to, look up to him. Maybe not look up to him, but maybe not look at him like he is, a joke or a clown or anything like that. Like you can genuinely get that sense that Rickon just wants to be, have Mark look at him in a different light, I guess. And yeah, that is kind of sad. Poor Rickon. I do kind of feel bad for him now. Poor guy. Got a bad rap. And yeah, Outie Mark doesn't seem to be too impressed with Rickon, but any Mark, super impressed with him. The Rickon Bible. Indeed, it is the Rickon. It's going to become known as the Rickon Bible. Like the cult of Rickon is in full effect, and it's a freaking weird and fun place, to say the least. What do you guys think is on the board? Now, this is a very interesting one. I'd love to talk about this a little bit, because I think there's a few different possibilities. Now, the way that Helena just kind of picks up her phone and says, is the board available right now? I mean, if the board was made up of multiple different people, there's no way they would be able to get them all on the horn that freaking quick. It would take a little bit longer. So some have suggested that the board is simply just one person, James Egan, or maybe somebody else, that maybe the board is simply just one person. But I also like the theory going around that the board isn't comprised of people at all, that the board is actually more of a kind of AI that is guiding the company, that the company is maybe guided by this AI technology that tells them, where to go, what to do, and all this thing. It's a proprietary artificial intelligence that is running the company in a sense. And I thought that was an interesting theory. I mean, someone had brought it up in my comment section not long ago, and I thought, that's an interesting take on it, because I didn't always start to assume that the board was maybe just one person, just a single person. It's not a board of a bunch of people. It's just one person making all the decisions, and maybe it's James Egan himself. Who knows? But again, I don't know. I like the idea of maybe the board being some kind of AI, some kind of software that is guiding the company in the best way it can. Yeah, it's Siri. The board is essentially Siri. Yes, Xavier. The board is essentially Siri, indeed. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to know what you guys think in the chat. What do you guys think of the board? When you think of the board of Lumon, do you think it is comprised of multiple people, of multiple different businessmen? Could the board simply just be one businessman? Or could the board be something else entirely? What do you guys think? What is up with the board of Lumon? Why is it so mysterious? How come there's only one person that seems to ever be the intermediary between the board and whoever they're talking to? I don't know. I don't know, but I'd love to know what you guys think. What is up with the board? Is it multiple people? Is it one person? What is going on? What is going on indeed? It's a board of multiple chips. Ooh, interesting, Pug Dog. Like multiple different chips. Okay, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting idea. I think there's more board members with tattoos like the Frolic tattoo. Yes, that's right. I totally forgot about that, PM. Yes, we see the Frolic tattoo on the one board member, or the seemingly board member that we have met. And yes, do each board member have, Frolic is one, but maybe every board member is a different aspect. He's Frolic. Maybe there's other board members that are other aspects of those four. I could totally see that being the case. Absolutely. Because I feel like that Frolic tattoo was very interesting. I mean, the directors clearly wanted us to see that Frolic tattoo. That was not for mistake. That was not just something throwaway. That was definitely foreshadowing for something, 100%. I also think people are confused about goats, like like Bamfonet represents duality, which makes sense to the severed idea. Also, yeah, the goats are another one. Like, what exactly are the goats for? Why are there goats at Lumon? Baby goats at that, not even full-grown goats. They're baby goats. And we saw how that one guy reacted in season 1 when Mark and Helly walked into that room, and he's like, "No, she's not ready yet. She's not ready yet. Get out of here!" Like he did not want to give up that baby goat. So yeah, the goats are another very huge question mark. But one thing I have noticed lately is there is one character that has goat memorabilia spread all throughout their house, and I didn't notice it until I did like some rewatches, and I start to look, because anytime I do a review for the channel, I always try to watch the episode once, just regular, and then I always try to go back and watch the episode a second and maybe even a third time, where I pay very close attention to everything that is happening in the background. And I started noticing that there's one character with a ton of goat memorabilia in their house, and it's Rickon. It is Rickon. Next time you guys are watching any episodes where you're at Rickon and Devin's house, look at some of the backgrounds. Look at some of the shelves. Look at some of the weird places where you can just look in the background. Rickon has so much goat memorabilia in his house. It's not even funny. I can't believe I didn't recognize it sooner. Can't believe I didn't recognize it sooner. But yes, Rickon has a ton of goat memorabilia all over his house. I don't know what that means, but it's there. It is there. Yeah, maybe it's a motherboard. Maybe the board is literally just one motherboard. Again, I like the idea that it is potentially some kind of AI, some kind of computer, that this board isn't even comprised of people. I think that would be an interesting twist. Maybe that's an interesting one. I think the board is full of shit, says Xavier Anderson. Yeah, maybe the board is just one big ruse, one giant ruse. Absolutely, that's totally possible. Totally possible. The board equals motherboard and all the Egan's consciousness that have been uploaded to it. That's an interesting idea as well. I mean, there's a lot of interesting fan theories going around that Lumon's ultimate goal is to resurrect Kier, is to bring back the original Kier. And they're going about doing that by bringing back past and previous CEOs in order to perfect the method before they bring back Kier. Because I imagine it would be tough to bring someone like Kier back with all of his genetic predispositions. Kier, at the end of the day, was a product of incest. He had tons of genetic mutations and tons of genetic problems on him. Like, he was not a very healthy person. And you can learn all about that. And, you know, if you dive deeper into some of the Severance wiki stuff and all of that, you learn everything there is to know about Kier Egan and how kind of twisted of a character he really was, both physically and mentally. But yes, he was a product of incest at the end of the day, and he did have genetic problems. So bringing someone like that back is going to be problematic. You're going to want to try and fix some of those genetic abnormalities before you bring this character back. And how do you do something like that? You practice on previous CEOs. So I love that idea. I love the idea that maybe the board is like literally a motherboard of all of the consciousness of all of the past Egan CEOs. Because we do get that one interesting line from James Egan at the end of season 1 as well, when he comes up to Helena, or what he thinks is Helena, but at this point she's already switched over to Helly at the end of season 1. And he says, "One day you'll sit with me at my revolving." And I always thought that was interesting. What exactly would he mean by that? What did James Egan mean when he said, "One day you'll sit with me at my revolving"? And I think it could be something maybe along those lines, that maybe at some point when James Egan is old and he's getting ready to die, that he will also be uploaded into this kind of consciousness, where his consciousness also will get downloaded into something, and he will be literally revolving. So I always thought that was an interesting line from James Egan at the end of season 1 in terms of what the revolving really means. I don't know. But I think that's an interesting theory. I like the motherboard theory. Again, it's that's why they're calling it a board, because it's literally a motherboard. Again, it's a cool theory. Good stuff, guys. Very good stuff. Petey's map looks like it does, yes. Petey's map looks like a circuit board schematics. I work in tech, even though I somehow totally messed up my laptop yesterday, but yeah, it does. It does kind of, like, when you look at his map, it does strikingly look like a circuit board. It really, really does. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh no, does that mean Rickon is bad? Oh no, I don't know. I don't know, PM. I do not know. All I know is that I started to notice a ton of goat memorabilia in Rickon's house. Like in the backgrounds, like on shelves and stuff, you'll see all of these weird goats. He's got a super weird, trippy goat head on a table that you see in season 2, episode 2, I believe. Yeah, season 2, episode 2. You see a really weird, like super trippy, weird goat head that looks an awful lot like the goat head that we see comes and dances in front of Dylan at his waffle party and the perpetuity wing. There's some weird goat stuff going on in Rickon's house. That's all I'll say. Is he bad? I don't know, but he's got some weird goat stuff going on. There's a lot of goats in Rickon's house. I don't know what it means, but there's a lot of goats there. A lot of goats indeed. Yeah, Rickon's fascinating. He is a fascinating character. Severance wiki. Yes, there is a Severance wiki, actually, where it's got literally all of the information you ever could ask for about the show of Severance. If you have a question about a character, when they were born, when they were died, how many CEOs of Lumon there have been, how long they served for, literally just about everything you can think of there is in the Severance wiki. All you got to do is search Severance wiki and it'll take you right there. There's tons of information on the show there. And it's a really great source for YouTubers as well, where you can go and get some really good information that you know is accurate, that will help you kind of put forth a better, compelling argument on things. So yes, there is a pretty interesting Severance wiki out there that has, again, it's got about everything on there, just about everything there. Goats being used for the regenerative medicine, like in stem cell therapy, and can regenerate neurons, muscular skeleton systems, healing wounds, healing bone fractures, dermatology, cardiology, and reanimation. Again, there is a lot of theories going around out there that the goats are being experimented on, that these goats are, the testing phase before they move on to human trials, which unfortunately is something we do see in the real world. It's horrific, but animal trials are a very real thing in the real world, where many companies will experiment on animals. They experiment on chimpanzees, all kinds of things before they go on to move on to human trials. And could Lumon potentially be doing something similar? Are they experimenting on these goats before they move on to a human trial? Could totally see that. Maybe they're out there chipping goats for all we know. Who fucking knows? But it's possible. Definitely possible. The first cloned animal was a sheep named Dolly, after Dolly Parton. Ooh, interesting. I did not know that. There you go. You learn something new every day. Love it. Because they used the tatas of the other goat to clone her. Oh, geez. So that's why they called her Dolly Parton. Jesus. Jesus. And thank you so much for that, PM. That is the link to my latest video, where I do dive a lot deeper into all of these things. And of course, the incredibly striking similarities between Severance and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, not the Frankenstein monster that we all know and love when you think of Frankenstein and Halloween. That's not the Frankenstein I'm talking about. I'm talking about the real story of Frankenstein, the dark, twisted, maniacal scientist that is trying to create unnatural life through unnatural means, and the hubris of playing God and creating life where life maybe was never meant to be created from. That's the Frankenstein I'm talking about, not the creature. I'm talking about Victor Frankenstein and everything that he stood for, and how similar he is to Kier Egan. If that is your kind of thing, definitely check out that video. I go super deep into the comparisons between Frankenstein and Severance. Now that Mark is reintegrated, he will see Helena on TV or something, and then blow the whistle on her with the Innies. Maybe that could be something that they can kind of utilize. Like, yeah, now that Mark is reintegrating, maybe he will start to be able to notice things. Maybe he will be able to start to recognize things like that a lot better than any Mark was ever able to. So I could see that being a possibility, Howie. Yeah, that's a good one. That's actually a good one. Let's face it, guys. The Egans are weirdos. They're a product of incest at the end of the day. Like, the Egan family started with incest. Kier Egan was a product of incest. So yeah, they're weird. They're fucking weird. There's no getting around that. They are fucking weird. I totally agree with you, Xavier. Totally agree. Islands in the Stream with Kenny Rogers is my favorite Dolly Parton song. Okay, interesting. I got to say, I'm not too familiar with much Dolly Parton myself, but yeah, hell yeah, if you like some Dolly Parton, hey, you ain't gonna hear me complain. And here I thought Dr. Rickon would be the first good cult leader. Maybe he will be. Again, I don't know what the goats mean. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe it's just pure coincidence that Rickon has goats all over his house, or goat memorabilia all throughout his house. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Or, yeah, maybe there's a little bit more to Rickon than we realize. Maybe. Remote viewing, aka the men who stare at goats. Maybe that's it. Maybe that is it. Awesome stuff. Yeah, again, episode 3 was freaking phenomenal. I still can't believe they did reintegration this fast. I did have a feeling they were going to reintegrate Mark in season 2, just based off the intro sequence. We have that very interesting kind of little depiction at the end of the intro sequence that looks like Mark's innie breaking through to the surface, coming out of the back of his head, indicating that one is coming to the surface, kind of thing. I always kind of took that as a hint that Mark would reintegrate at some point in season 2, but I was not expecting it as early as episode 3. Like, I thought if they're going to reintegrate Mark, that'll be something they save for, you know, mid-season or maybe even the season finale. I was not expecting it as early as episode 3. But again, I really love how the pacing is going on Severance. They're advancing things at a very interesting and rapid rate. Not too rapid to the point where it's going too fast, and certainly not too slow. I feel like they found that perfect little medium, that perfect middle road, where it's just a very good progression of the plot. We're getting answers. The plot is moving forward in a meaningful way, while also still keeping the big overall overarching mysteries intact, like what Lumon is really working on, all the other bigger mysteries that are still there. But so far, the pacing has been so phenomenal on Severance Season 2. I'm loving what they're doing, loving where they're going. Cannot wait to see episode 4 again. I will have my episode 4 preview breakdown up tomorrow morning on the channel, so everybody definitely check that out tomorrow when I upload it. I got some interesting footage of episode 4. It's not a whole lot, but it's just a few little scenes that are going to be in episode 4, and I do break them down and what I think they ultimately might mean. So that will be uploading on the channel tomorrow morning right here. Definitely check that out when you get a chance. It's a really awesome, it's an interesting little look into the preview of episode 4, I must say. I had a lot of fun making it. But up until this point, loving what Severance is doing. They are killing it right now. I do genuinely feel like this is the best show that is currently on TV right now. I mean, at least it's definitely the most entertaining show that I'm watching right now. And I do try to watch tons of different shows because you never know what I'm going to kind of review here on the channel. I just kind of like reviewing shows that I really, really like. The popularity doesn't really kind of factor into it. But loving Severance up until this point. They are killing it in season 2, and I cannot wait for episode 4. And again, based on some of the early reviews, it looks like episode 4 is going to be a monumental episode. Again, anyone who wasn't here earlier, the actor Adam Scott, who plays Mark S., has said episode 4 was the most intense episode he has ever filmed. And that's season 1 and season 2 included. He says episode 4 was the craziest episode they have ever filmed. And apparently the creator of the show approached him very early on before they even started filming season 2 to tell him his idea. Apparently he had a very interesting idea that was going to take place in episode 4, and he wanted Adam Scott's opinion on it. And Adam Scott loved it. He thought it was incredibly interesting and huge. Apparently episode 4, something happens in episode 4 that apparently changes the entire course of Severance going forward. And apparently we're going to get a really, really big reveal at the end of the episode. That's what some of the early reviews are saying. The early reviews, of course, don't go into any spoilers, no details, but all of the early reviews have stated that episode 4 is going to have something massive in it, something incredibly mind-bending, the way it's been described. So bring it on, guys. Episode 4 is just around the corner now. And again, I will have my episode 4 preview breakdown up on the channel tomorrow morning, so definitely keep an eye out for that as well. But up until this point, I am loving Severance Season 2. I am loving the pacing up until this point. Episode 3 for me was a solid 8 out of 10. Easily a solid 8 out of 10. I think it was a really good episode that ended on a really high note. And again, I'm enjoying the pacing. Coming off of From and seeing how slow the pacing on From was, how they really kind of drag everything out until that very last episode when they just dump a whole bunch of answers on you. I'm not always the biggest fan of that. I do much prefer answers coming along the way in a better kind of rate and a better pace, as opposed to just throwing all of the answers at everybody at the very end in one episode. That's not always my favorite method, but I gotta say, loving what Severance is doing up until this point. The first 3 episodes were great. Cannot wait to see episode 4. Can't wait to see this big monumental thing that's apparently going to happen in episode 4. I have a few ideas as to what I think it is going to be, and that will be in my episode 4 preview breakdown video that I will be uploading on the channel tomorrow. And in terms of the massive fan theory that is going to get answered tomorrow, I think I know what it is. Again, I could be 100% wrong, but I think I know what the big fan theory that is going to get answered tomorrow is, and I will have that in my video as well, so definitely keep an eye out for that. But up until now, again, loving Severance, loving what they are doing up until this point. Definitely my favorite show on TV right now. And I look forward to seeing where the rest of the season goes. Now, this Thursday, we will be live like we always are. Every Thursday, we go live at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is around 1 hour before the episode drops. The episodes have been dropping at 9 p.m. Eastern every Thursday lately. I know it says it's scheduled to drop Friday at midnight, but Apple TV always drops them a little bit earlier than that. So up until this point, every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, that is when the Severance episodes have been uploading on Apple TV. So every Thursday, an hour before that, I will be going live for a little pregame show just to have a little place to hang out and kill some time while we wait for the new episode to drop. So definitely come and hang out with us this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the episode 4 pregame show. And then, of course, PM and I will be live on Saturday as we dive into all things Severance episode 4. We also go live every Saturday here on the channel as well at 9 p.m. Eastern. So definitely come back and hang out with us for that as well as we continue to go down this insanely wild ride that Severance is taking us on and see where this rabbit hole ultimately leads. But until next time, I want to thank everybody out there for joining us this evening. I know time is incredibly important these days. I appreciate anybody who takes the time out to come and hang out with us for a little bit and share your thoughts and opinions. I am super appreciative. Love hearing what you guys think. Love hearing your thoughts and your theories and predictions. Whatever predictions you guys have for episode 4, definitely leave them in the comment section after this stream ends. I want to know some of your biggest predictions for episode 4. Where do you think this thing is going? What do you think some of the big reveals are going to be? What were some of your favorite moments and what were some of your least favorite moments? Drop it in the comment section when the stream ends, and I always love reading the comments. I try to get to every single one. But again, big thank you to each and every one of you for hanging out with us this evening. That is going to do it for our Severance Hour this Tuesday. And again, we will be live again Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for the pregame show, and then Saturday again, 9 p.m. Eastern, as we dive into all things Severance episode 4. And until next time, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the